Now isn't the time. Remember, all of us here are ultimately waiting for Long Chen to become a sovereign. Only he can prevent the upcoming calamity. Any advantages or disadvantages that appear here aren't important. What is important is whether or not Long Chen can become a sovereign. If he is interrupted, then all life forms of the martial heaven continent will meet their end, said the high priest. The 5 sovereigns were all sitting in the air like statues. Their bodies were starting to grow illusory. Under the attacks of Gui Si, the Kunping Emperor, and the Blood Race's Emperor, their remnant sovereign power was slowly ground away. At the start, we used a tactic to bait out reinforcements before crushing them together. The other side is also using this tactic, said Marun. Once you go out, no matter how many of them you kill, it will still produce blood-soul energy and quicken their end goal. This is also why when the blood-soul energy on the continent reached a certain level, it triggered the 5 sovereigns to form this barrier and temporarily halt the battle. Since the sovereigns stopped more blood-soul energy from appearing, they had to kill their own people, but that produced far less energy. They'll then need to kill countless members of their own races. If you go out and are surrounded by them, if any of you die, it will only benefit them. The slaughter on the battlefield only benefited the other side as it produced the strongest blood-soul energy. Only now did the martial heaven continent's experts learn of this, but as for why the invaders would do this, Maruyun didn't say. As the fighting outside continued, the continent's experts inside of the barrier continued advancing. The majority of the Dragonblood warriors had advanced to the Saint Realm. Suddenly, the world dimmed and the silent heaven devastating bracelet shuddered, causing everyone to jump. Boss has advanced to the Emperor Realm, exclaimed Guoran in delight. Long Chen was sitting within the heaven devastating bracelet. His whole body was surrounded by stars, and the aura of an emperor flowed around him. At this moment, countless cracks appeared throughout the heaven devastating bracelet. The heaven devastating bracelet was like a stalk of sugarcane that was having its energy squeezed out. Its body began to crumble, and all its energy was pouring into Long Chen. That energy is astonishing. The energy that Long Chen is absorbing is enough to blow up a sovereign like Yi Ming, said the high priest with a sigh. With the high priest's experience, he instantly saw that the energy that Long Chen had used to go from the 9th heaven stage to the 12th heaven stage far surpassed Yi Ming's energy as a whole. Furthermore, breaking through to the sovereign realm would require at least 10 times more energy compared to becoming an emperor. Long Chen truly needed an astonishing amount of energy. Suddenly, cracks appeared in the spatial gate above the corrupt god cemetery. Yi Ming then raised his head and laughed. I was still the one to take the initiative. Since my undying race's experts from the higher planes are descending first, victory will belong to the undying race. The spatial gate shuddered and one figure after another appeared, wearing strange robes that were completely different from the other undying experts. Shockingly, their auras were incredibly powerful, lying between the Saint Realm and the Emperor Realm. They should belong to the half-step Emperor category. Not good. Their descent is far too fast. Taoist Heavenly Feather's expression changed. Yi Ming was truly a schemer. Perhaps he had taken a shortcut to the sovereign realm precisely for this. Hundreds of those experts came out of the spatial gate, and more of them kept coming. Kill them, shouted Yi Ming, raising his spear. Those foreign experts actually listened to him and charged toward Ziyen. Suddenly, the southern sea zither's light expanded, covering Ziyen. Its power instantly rose by multiple levels. At the same time, the Western Desert Axe, Central Plains Cauldron, and Northern Source Sword also skyrocketed in power. Although they were still at a disadvantage against the 9-headed lion, they began to stabilize and form a stalemate. No, they fooled me. The 9-headed lion's expression suddenly became gloomy. Abandoning Mo Nian and the others, he charged toward the barrier of the 5 sovereigns. After attacking all this time, the 9-headed lions suddenly realized that their supreme divine items were the crux of this barrier. For them to be supporting the barrier and fighting against him was a distribution of energy. So having their power split up like this was a kind of taboo. The 9-headed lion then realized that considering the size of the barrier, breaking it should be comparatively easier. It suddenly struck him that Emon Yen and the others had only been baiting him into a fight to avoid him targeting the barrier. Thinking of how he had wasted so much time on them, he was incredibly vexed. Seeing the countless experts making rapid breakthroughs inside of the barrier, he realized just how foolish it was for him to try to use the 4 of them to force Long Chen out. After that, he immediately abandoned Emon Yen and the others, going straight for the barrier. Yiming also reacted, leading the Undying Race's army toward the barrier. Their attacks caused the barrier to shake. With their addition, the barrier was growing dimmer and dimmer. It clearly wouldn't be long before it shattered. Just at this moment, the light of the supreme divine items retracted, going to support the formation once more. All of a sudden, Emon Yen unleashed an arrow as quick as lightning toward the meditating Alldevil Heavenwalker. The Devil Race's army had been almost wiped out by Maruyun, and those in charge of guarding the altar were now slaughtering their own people coming out of Devil Spirit Mountain in order to increase the blood-soul energy in the air. Hence, by the time they realized there was an attack, they didn't have time to stop it. However, just as the arrow was about to pierce the Alldevil Heavenwalker, it stopped. The Alldevil Heavenwalker's eyes slowly opened, and a sovereign crown appeared on his head. Foolish human race, you cannot escape your fate of being destroyed. As the Alldevil Heavenwalker slowly stood up, devil chi filled the sky. The Blood Race's altar also quivered, and blood chi swirled around the Blood Fiend Devil Lord. At this moment, heaven and earth rumbled, and a sovereign crown also appeared on his head. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord has also become a sovereign. Emon Yen's heart became cold. Everything was happening too fast, and they didn't even have a chance to breathe. The martial heaven continent's core will belong to the Blood Race. No one can snatch it from us. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord suddenly spat a mouthful of blood on the giant egg beneath his feet. That was a sovereign's essence blood, containing the might of a sovereign. Mighty Wolf God, awaken. Countless runes lit up on the giant egg, and its shell gradually became translucent, allowing people to see a snow-white body curled up inside of it. The body was that of a wolf, and its fur was like white jade. It seemed as if there were tiny runes flowing around every single strand of it. Right now, its eyes were closed in slumber, and only a single patch of red fur was present on its forehead. The shell was being nourished by essence blood and starting to crack. As it did, a terrifying aura came out from within, one pulsing with majestic divine energy. In fact, the first pulse directly blasted apart the Blood Race's experts standing beside it. Quite a few of those experts were saints but were still wiped out. So it was still lacking a bit of energy. It seems that I still underestimated the Wolf God's power, laughed the Blood Fiend Devil Lord excitedly. Even after absorbing so much blood soul energy, the Wolf God had yet to awaken. Its power far surpassed the Blood Fiend Devil Lord's expectations. The more energy it absorbed, the more it proved its power. The Blood Race had been consecrating the Wolf God race for countless years, so the latter had sent them this Wolf God egg from a higher plane. As a matter of fact, this egg had been in the Yin-Yang world for over 100,000 years. Whenever the Yin-Yang world opened and the martial heaven continent's experts entered to adventure, whether they killed the inhabitants of that world or they were killed themselves, it would produce blood-soul energy for the Wolf God egg. After being nourished for so many years, it was finally awakening for this era. But the result was that it was still missing a bit of energy. At this moment, the power of the Wolf God egg delighted the Blood Fiend Devil Lord, as he was the one to awaken this Wolf God. According to the Wolf God race's convention, he would be this Wolf God's companion, and his talent and aptitude would be bound to it. He would then have the Wolf God's blessing for his future cultivation and progress by leaps and bounds. If it's still missing a bit of blood soul energy, then I'll just need to produce some more. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord laughed and suddenly shot toward the barrier. The supreme divine items in Emon Yen, Wild Yijichio, and Ziyan's hands quivered, causing the 4 of them to vanish. All of them then reappeared within the barrier. At this moment, their divine items disappeared from their hands as well, merging with their images in the sky to reinforce the barrier. It then instantly strengthened by several levels. This tortoise shell of yours won't last much longer. Prey that is fated to be slaughtered cannot escape. The Alldevil Heavenwalker also flew over, attacking the barrier. As a result, ripples spread across the barrier with each of his attacks. On the other side, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord was also attacking the barrier with his Blood Soul Tower. Every strike caused the land to tremble, shaking people's hearts. Yi Ming, the Nine-Headed Lion, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker were crazily assaulting the barrier, causing it to gradually weaken. Hence, the people inside were all terrified. Husband, Mrs. Long was awake now and trembled in fear. Being nothing more than an ordinary person, she was naturally terrified upon seeing such a scene. "Don't worry. I will protect you," whispered Long Tianxiao comfortingly. "There's no need to worry. Big Brother will definitely protect us. Grandpa High Priest already told me that Big Brother is this world's strongest person," declared Long Xiaoyu confidently. However, not everyone was as brave as Long Xiaoyu. Some children were hiding and crying in the embraces of the adults, and even those adults were terrified. They were watching fiends from their nightmares attack them. They wanted to wake up, but this wasn't a dream. It was the reality. They were all simply ordinary people, so they could only entrust their lives to the experts. As for the weaker cultivators, they were filled with guilt over not being qualified to participate in this battle. Some of them were youngsters who were only at the Life Star realm or the Soul Transformation realm, but they stood together with the older experts. It was simply a case of being born in the right great era, but not having the power to grab the chance to change their lives. They hadn't managed to ascend into powerful experts. Hence, they could only stare as the Dragonblood warriors woke up one after another and gathered at the very front fearlessly. They were like an iron wall protecting them. The other person that they looked at was the one with a surging emperor aura. At this moment, Long Chen was surrounded by flowing stars. However, people didn't quite dare to look directly at him. I really was blind back then to believe those rumors. Some people slapped themselves a few times until their faces were bloody, startling the people around them. Long Chen had reached his current level while being cursed and questioned by them. No expert's path was more difficult than his. It was today that they truly believed Long Chen was the true protector of the martial heaven continent. Back then, they had continuously thought of every possible way to hinder him, slowing down his growth. They had once believed in the divine families and Pill Valley, but those powers then revealed their true faces. The divine families were even a leading enemy force behind this dark era. As for Pill Valley, the fighting had been going on for so long, but they had yet to appear. Without them, the main force on the front lines of the martial heaven continent's side was the Dragonblood Legion. Moreover, with this battle at hand, the truth about every person's character was revealed. Certain people were filled with regret, but that no longer had any meaning. If only they had known sooner? Such a thing meant nothing in this world. The 4 enemy sovereigns were attacking the barrier while assisted by their giant armies. Also, they continued to slaughter their own people at the same time. Since they had advanced to the sovereign realm, all the blood soul energy was flowing toward the giant egg, as well as the 4 spatial gates. Suddenly, 3 explosive sounds rang out, and the remaining spatial gates opened. Strange life forms came walking out with terrifying auras. Just like the Undying Race's gate, those experts were at the half-step emperor level. They came out like locusts, assaulting the sovereign's barrier. "Prepare for battle," Guoran shouted, clenching his dual blades. Right now, the Dragonblood warriors had all awakened and advanced to the Saint Realm. As the Dragonblood warriors unsheathed their weapons, blood chi soared into the heavens along with countless dragon roars, shaking the sky. Bang! The barriers suddenly shattered, causing everyone's hearts to clench. The destruction of the barrier signified the start of a bloody slaughter. However, what people hadn't expected was that after the barrier was broken, its power condensed, splitting into 2 smaller barriers. One protected Long Chen, while the other protected everyone. The 5 supreme divine items appeared above Long Chen's head, forming a new smaller barrier. As for the other barrier, it came from the ground. This was the power of the martial heaven continent's core. Originally, The giant barrier had been set up by the power of both the 5 supreme divine items and the martial heaven continent's core to prevent the heaven devastating bracelet's power from flowing away, locking that power inside for the cultivators to absorb. However, now that the barrier could no longer be maintained, they split up, with the 5 supreme divine items protecting Longchen and the martial heaven continent protecting its people. The 9-headed lion and the others had been delighted to see the barrier break, but when they saw it shrink down into smaller barriers, they knew that its defensive powers had to have shot up, so they cursed furiously. "Ignore the trash. Kill Longchen," shouted Yi Ming. "Fuck, who do you think you are to give me orders?" "Scram," cursed the 9-headed lion. The original plan had been for them to attack together after becoming sovereigns. That was the most dependable method, but Yi Ming had been in a rush to take everything for himself, resulting in this current mess. Now he even wished to give them directions? The 9-headed lion had an urge to kill him. "Do I need you to give me directions? Are you an idiot?" sneered the blood fiend devil lord. "Once this is over, we'll settle things between us," said the Alldevil Heavenwalker darkly. He was the most infuriated out of everyone. The devil race's army had been exterminated. This was an insult to the devil race, and it was all Yi Ming's fault. Without needing to hear Yi Ming's reminder, they all charged toward Longchen. That was because they had a bad feeling. Even through the barrier, they could sense Longchen's terrifying aura, and it made their hearts quiver. Moreover, the 4 of them already had a sense of fear beaten into them by Longchen. If he became a sovereign as well, they might not be able to defeat him. At this moment, their armies were assaulting the barrier, with more of them appearing from the spatial gates. Their numbers seemed endless. "Senior, are we just going to watch like this?" cried out Guaran. The high priest nodded. "We can only wait. All the moves on this life and death board have been played, and what remains is the decisive clash. Life and death will be decided here. The more pressing things are, the more we must stay calm. We must listen to the sovereign's directives." The 5 sovereigns had made their moves on this board stemming back over 100,000 years, and their efforts had resulted in this current board. Since they were now on the eve of a critical juncture, everyone was tense. Emo Nien and the others clenched their weapons. To say that they weren't nervous would be a lie. There couldn't be the smallest slip, as behind them were their families. Every single warrior here had a family. Although they had set foot on the path of cultivation and almost lost contact with them, their families were still in their hearts. These ties were what allowed them to stand at the front of the battlefield bravely. They no longer had any path of retreat. Boom. Another incense stick's worth of time later, the barrier protecting everyone rumbled. At this moment, the 5 sovereigns' figures became much fainter. Under the assault of countless experts, their blood-soul energy had been exhausted. "Attack!" The high priest suddenly charged out, leading the way out of the barrier. The 5 sovereigns' barrier had finally reached the point where they had no other choice but to attack. "Kill!" Guaran howled and charged out with the Dragonblood Legion. The heaven-splitting divine sect and the Xin Tian Dao sect's experts followed them. At this moment, all the top experts charged out. There were the Nangong, Baiting and Shiman families, the Amo family, the Wine God Palace, the Heavenly Sword Gate, the Huayan sect, and more. They were like a giant dragon charging out of the barrier. "Jianying, you should stay here. I will kill enough for you," said the old man, his white hair blowing in a wild gust. However, despite his wild appearance, he still didn't want Chu Jianying to be in danger. Dangers surrounded every single one of them now. However, Chu Jianying had a rare smile on her face. She held the old man's face. "I'm not afraid. I have the Martial Heaven Virtue Tablet, so I'll be fine. As the previous leader of the Martial Heaven Alliance, how can I hide? Old man, I promise that I will fully leave these matters behind after this battle. I'll marry you and be your wife. I'll accompany you for a long time, and I won't intentionally anger you again. So remember, you have to come back alive. This is our promise." Chu Jianying stuck out her pinky, clasping it with the old man's thick pinky. "Remember, this is our promise. You can't break it." "Ah, all right. I have never failed to live up to my word in this lifetime. Today, I'll show these little brats what is called a good blade that doesn't grow old." The old man laughed heroically, catching up to his disciples in an instant. He then pushed aside the threatening Baobuping. "Everyone, follow me or you won't get any chance once I slaughter them all. Kill!" As their shouts rang out, a towering willow tree appeared, covering the sky, letting a lot of willow branches fall. Lu Ruyan was the one to pull open the curtain to this battle. Endless wind moons, blood buries life. Tang Wana was surrounded by wind blades. After becoming a saint, the power of her divine bone had fully awakened. Wherever her wind blades went, her enemies exploded, their blood filling the air. On the other side, the world was rocked as two giant figures crashed into each other. Cloud had transformed into the true form of a cloud chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, and she crashed into the Kunpeng Emperor. Both of them were divine birds, and their first clash caused a rain of feathers to fall. The Kunpeng Emperor then unleashed a claw on Cloud's wing and blood splashed. As for Cloud, she spat out a black light that pierced the Kunpeng Emperor's chest. The Kunpeng and the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow were both top existences amongst divine birds. They began a ferocious fight, filling the air with divine light. Kill! The martial heaven continent's experts pierced through the armies of the other worlds, but in terms of numbers, there was no way to compare them. The invaders had thousands of times more experts than them. However, the Dragonblood Legion was the sharpest blade for the martial heaven continent. They charged straight through the invaders, quickly reaching the barrier protecting Longchen. Yi Ming, come out and fight. Guoran charged out like a shooting star straight toward Yi Ming and then sliced his blades against each other. The runes on his wings blazed with light. Scram! Yi Ming shouted furiously. Everyone was treating him like some soft persimmon. Now, even some brat whose name he didn't care about dared to call him out for a fight. That was a huge insult. Yi Ming then smashed his spear toward Guoran, who suddenly crossed his blades. Just at that moment, all the dragon blood manifestations behind the Dragonblood warriors lit up, and all their power poured toward Guoran. After that, Guoran's armor lit up brighter than the sun. All its runes were activated. This was his first time unleashing an attack of this magnitude. Dragonblood cross slash. A metallic voice rang out, and a giant cross shot out of Guoran's blades, with the center locked onto Yi Ming. As a result, Yi Ming's face instantly turned green. In his fury, he had forgotten about this terrifying move from the Dragonblood Legion. They were capable of gathering the power of everyone in the Dragonblood Legion for an absolutely terrifying blow. However, even if he recalled it now, it was already too late. He was already locked on. Boom! The giant cross thundered through the air, its power leaving a chaotic flow of space in its wake. Yi Ming was then sent flying, his arms destroyed and his body covered in cracks. He was almost killed. Guoran shot after him like a bolt of lightning, wanting to take his life. However, Gui Si appeared in his way, blocking his attack. Scram, you meddlesome old ghost! Guoran shouted angrily. After that, 4 small holes appeared on his wrist, shooting out sharp awls. At this close distance, even Gui Si couldn't dodge in time. He only managed to avoid 2 of the awls and was struck in the leg and shoulder by the other 2. Those steel awls exploded once they pierced him, blasting apart Gui Si's leg and arm. The next moment, a sword slashed down from the heavens, and its sharp sword chi cut through Gui Si right down the middle. Gu Yang's spear then swept out, blasting apart his separated physical bodies. In the end, Gui Si's Yuan spirit flew out, hastily fleeing. Back in his fight against Sovereign Ziyang, he had his physical body destroyed just like this. Nevertheless, he was still a threat because his Yuan spirit was stronger than his physical body. But just at this moment, a ray of light enveloped his Yuan spirit. The light was coming from a mirror. It was beautiful, yet it made people's souls quiver. The Void Mirror was an extremely mysterious existence, and Meng Qi had gone through countless tests to reach her current mastery over the Void Mirror's power. Gui Si was instantly trapped within the light. He struggled to break free, but he began to be pulled into the Void Mirror. Hence, he was horrified. This light was not a power that belonged to this world. Gui Si then hastily raised his staff, and the eyes of the 3 skulls lit up. But at the next moment, the three skulls shattered. It was unknown what power destroyed the staff, but whatever it was, it destroyed Guixi's Yuan spirit as well. This expert that had lived to tell the tale after fighting Sovereign Ziyang was now killed by Meng Qi. Meng Qi stood in the air like a heavenly fairy, appearing to have transcended the coils of the mortal world. In her left hand was the void mirror, and her right hand was forming seals. The power of Guixi's Yuan spirit and staff were sucked into the void mirror. Heavenly soul slave seals. Meng Qi let out a cry. After that, her manifestation shuddered, and spiritual strength exploded like a volcano, pouring into the void mirror. Guixi's power merged with Meng Qi's spiritual strength, transforming into a rain of light. Every drop was actually a rune that flew toward the demonic beast race. The demonic beast race's experts were startled by this rain of light. They made moves to block it, but these runes were not actually physical entities and could not be blocked. Moreover, they didn't sense anything strange when the light fell on their bodies. They then stared at Meng Qi in confusion. However, they quickly felt that something was off. Marks began to appear on their foreheads, and they contained strange spiritual fluctuations. It's slave seals. The demonic beast race's experts shouted in panic when they knew what the light was. However, even as they shouted, those marks appeared in their eyes. They then pounced on the blood race's experts. "Bastards, have you gone crazy?" the blood race's experts shouted. Countless demonic beasts were crashing down upon them like the tide, throwing the entire battlefield into chaos. "Kill that girl." Meng Qi was in control of the void mirror and was using it to control tens of thousands of the demonic beasts that were simply wreaking havoc. Furthermore, the rain of light continued, and more demonic beasts were falling under Meng Qi's control. Even those that had descended from a higher plane were unable to block Meng Qi's soul art. Meng Qi wasn't a sovereign or even an emperor, so she had no transcendent power. However, the void mirror in her hands was a special existence. Through it, her spiritual strength transformed, becoming a kind of power that not even the experts of the higher plane could resist. This moment displayed the terror of a beast tamer. Meng Qi had never had strong divine beasts to control, so many of her techniques were limited to only the power of a soul cultivator, burying her true potential. However, on this battlefield, there were countless demonic beasts, and her beast tamer arts could reveal themselves. On her own, she gradually came to control millions of demonic beasts. "You're the one who will die." Guoran had no choice but to give up on Yi Ming and stop the nine-headed lion from interfering. With his armor and the support of the Dragonblood warriors, he was the only one capable of facing a sovereign. The nine-headed lion's claw then landed on Guoran's blade. Sparks flew, and they were both blown back. After that, the nine-headed lion shook out his tingling hand, while Guoran almost coughed up blood. The nine-headed lion was truly on a completely different level from Yi Ming. Just at this moment, the void shuddered. Guoran then looked over to where Long Chen was, and his expression instantly changed. At this moment, the barrier protecting Long Chen was covered in cracks, and the figures of the five sovereigns were incredibly faint. How regretful. We are fated not to bear witness to the final result. Are we going to fade away just like this? Sovereign Ziyang sighed. His body began to dissipate from his legs, transforming into tiny runes that flew apart. Sovereign Mo Li smiled faintly. "Although we can't see the result, I trust that it won't let us down." Sovereign Qing Su only stared outside and sighed. It was unknown if he was sighing because he was already dead and couldn't participate in this battle or something else. Sovereign Han Wei looked at Long Chen with a hint of longing in her eyes. Her body also began to dissipate. "While I was alive, my man wasn't. While my man is alive, I am already dead. I leave my feelings in these heavens, never to be forgotten." Sovereign Han Wei looked at Long Chen sadly. However, she was just a remnant discarnate soul, powerless to change anything. She had swept through 2 eras, slaughtering all her enemies, but not one person was able to enter her eyes. However, now that she was just a discarnate soul, she encountered Long Chen, the first man to enter her eyes. Love was truly an emotion that played with people. Sovereign Han Wei then looked from Long Chen to Ziyan and finally smiled contentedly. Goodbye forever, the one I waited 2 lifetimes for. After that, Sovereign Han Wei faded away, along with Sovereign Qing Su, Mo Li, and Ziyang. Only Sovereign Yunshang remained. However, his figure was also extremely faint. It clearly wouldn't last much longer. Boom. Finally, the barrier exploded and countless enemies charged toward Long Chen. The martial heaven continent's experts were drowned out by their numbers, unable to stop them. Just at this moment, the image of the eastern wasteland bell in the sky vanished. Its body appeared above Long Chen's head. After that, divine light fell from it, protecting Long Chen. On top of the bell was Yun Tian, and his body was wrapped in chains. His appearance was strange, completely different from normal. Sovereign Yunshang looked at Yun Tian guiltily. He wanted to say something, but even though his lips moved, no words came out. You don't need to say anything. As your descendant, this is my sacred duty. I am proud of it, said Yun Tian. Thank you. In the end, Sovereign Yunshang was only able to spit out 2 simple words. If there is a reincarnation, I wish to be your son again in the next life. Sovereign Yunshang trembled to hear Yun Tian call him dad. He smiled. But as his body faded, that smile also vanished from this world. The 5 sovereigns had given up everything for the martial heaven continent. Even in death, their soul essence remained to give a final burst of power to protect the continent. They were truly the continent's protective gods, this world's greatest contributors. Die. With the 5 sovereigns gone and only the eastern wasteland bell protecting Long Chen, enemies crashed down upon Long Chen. However, when their attacks struck the eastern wasteland bell's barrier, a strange power repelled them. Blood sacrifice guard? The high priest and the others were shocked to see this. Yun Tian had actually used a sacrificial art to create a wall to protect Long Chen. Now they understood why Sovereign Yunshang had apologized to Yun Tian. Yun Tian had received the mission to protect Long Chen and was using his own life to carry out this mission. Once this technique was activated, it could not be stopped. In other words, Yun Tian had sacrificed his life. Whether or not the barrier was broken, his life would be forfeit. Of the 5 sovereigns, only Yunshang had managed to have a son. With his heavenly fate eyes, he was able to see a glimpse of the future. In other words, he had given birth to a son just for today. Not only had he sacrificed everything about himself for the martial heaven continent, but even his son took over this mission, using his life to protect this world. His fate was set. At this moment, the martial heaven continent's experts couldn't help being moved to tears. Even the high priest's eyes were wet. Yun Tian was born to be Long Chen's companion, sighed Maryun. Yun Tian must have known of his fate long ago. As for Yunshang, he was filled with guilt toward this son of his. Everything was for the martial heaven continent. Even as countless experts assaulted the barrier, Yun Tian simply stood on top of the eastern wasteland bell. The chains condensed from his soul and blood fluttered. But no matter how they attacked the barrier, it majestically stood strong. Kill! Mo Nian charged forward ferociously. In this lifetime, perhaps the only one he was willing to call boss was Yun Tian. The current Yun Tian was like a candle burning himself to win time for Long Chen. The 5 sovereigns had vanished and the barrier had crumbled. This allowed the supreme divine items to return to their masters. With his double saint barrier and the central plains cauldron above his head, Mo Nian unleashed destructive arrows containing the power of the central plains cauldron. His arrows forcibly slaughtered a path through the armies of invaders. Charge! When that path appeared, Guoran led the Dragonblood Legion through it. Long Chen was the crux of this battle, and everyone was fighting for more time for him. Where do you think you're going? The 9-headed lion roared and chased after Mo Nian, only to have icy sword Qi block his path. Yi Zhiqiu's sword froze space, and half of the 9-headed lion's body lost any sensation when he was struck. Startled, he retreated. The supreme divine items were now focusing their power on combat, and the 9-headed lion finally sensed their terror. That ice Qi had invaded his soul, almost freezing it. Boom! Just at this moment, The spatial gates above the Yin-Yang world, ancient battlefield, corrupt god cemetery, and devil spirit mountain rumbled. The gates opened a bit wider. Following that, terrifying auras came out. More and more experts walked out of the gates. Emperors! Startled cries rang out. Originally, the experts coming out were saints with half a step into the emperor realm. However, when the gates opened a bit wider, experts that had reached the emperor level came out as well. Upon seeing this, everyone's hearts turned cold. "Defend the barrier!" shouted the high priest. Emon Yen, Wild, Ziyen, and Yi Jiqiu abandoned their opponents, charging over to the side of the eastern wasteland belt. The martial heaven continent's experts focused all their power there. However, there were too many enemies. Casualties quickly began to stack up on the martial heaven continent's side. "If we only defend, we'll be at too much of a disadvantage," shouted Song Mingyuan. This couldn't continue much longer. Everyone knew that this couldn't be maintained for much longer. However, if they allowed others to attack the barrier, then Yun Tian also wouldn't be able to last for long. Right now, the faintest qi of a sovereign had been condensed by Long Chen, so every bit of time that they could stall was a bit more hope. However, the 4 spatial gates continued to slowly open. More and more foreign experts flooded onto the continent. The very sky was cracking as if the world was about to burst. Boom! Suddenly, out of nowhere, spatial gates began to appear above their heads. In total, 3 additional gates opened. "It's doomed!" People's hearts sank. This really left them with no hope. The Shao tribe's Shao Fei is here. Experts of the immemorial path are here to reinforce Big Brother Long Chen. A mighty voice rang out. Hearing that they came from the immemorial path, the Dragonblood warriors cheered. They hadn't expected the indigenous people of the immemorial path to come reinforce them. When they had met, Shao Fei had been a rather cowardly teen. But he had grown up now, becoming a true man. However, what was truly shocking was their auras. Back then, Shao Fei could only reach the level of a rank 3 celestial thanks to Long Chen's help. However, his aura was now vast and majestic. He was actually an emperor, and this was not something he had recently achieved. He had to have stabilized his realm in the emperor realm a while ago because his aura was as heavy as a star. Furthermore, thousands of experts behind Shao Fei were also emperors, and there were millions of saints. Such a powerful lineup was enough to shake the experts of the other worlds. At this moment, Shao Fei waved his hand, and a giant skull appeared, smashing into the armies of the other side. That skull possessed a terrifying aura. It was the same skull that Long Chen had seen at the bottom of the immemorial path with the eastern wasteland. Now it had been taken out by Shao Fei. "I will return this to you," shouted Shao Fei. Boom! The giant skull exploded, unleashing a wave of terrifying power that devoured everything within a giant radius. All the experts caught within it were turned to nothingness. Shao Fei's arrival stunned everyone. The martial heaven continent's experts were ecstatic to receive reinforcements, especially from people they had considered enemies. The immemorial path had gone through a complete transformation after Long Chen left. It was originally a training ground that almighty experts in the past had linked to the wall of the immortal world, allowing a trace of the immortal world's energy to leak inside of it. This resulted in its special world laws that made it the best place for experts to grow. However, after the war, it was turned into a land of ruin. Let alone the aura of the immortal world, even the aura of the martial heaven continent was almost unable to reach it. Hence, their resources became sparse. During Long Chen's tribulation, he had ripped open the wall of the heavens, completely transforming the immemorial path. By tearing open that wall, Long Chen had inadvertently bumped into the wall of the immortal world, causing its energy to enter the immemorial path once more. As a result, experts began to arise within the immemorial path like bamboo after a spring rainfall. Their growth was even faster than the martial heaven continent's experts. Shao Fei was the first to become an emperor. He then managed to link together the 4 fragments of the immemorial path and became the leader of the entire world. They eventually charged underground, where after a brutal, bloody battle, they shattered the barrier there and took the skull that was like a malignant tumor in their world. After resolving this problem, Xiao Fei began to think of ways to link up with the martial heaven continent. According to Lord Heaven Eye, a tribulation was about to befall the martial heaven continent. In order to repay Long Chen for his favor, Xiao Fei had spent a great deal of effort trying to form a channel, but he was unable to pierce the spatial wall. At that time, Lord Heaven Eye activated his eyes and ultimately told Xiao Fei that he needed to wait for the right time. After saying that, he reached the end of his lifespan and passed away. Xiao Fei had been waiting for half a year. Finally, the spatial wall weakened, and that was due to the 4 other worlds forming their own channels. The spatial wall then weakened more and more until it reached a critical point, and their channel instantly pierced through. After that, Xiao Fei charged through with the experts of the immemorial path. Big Brother Longchen, today I, Xiao Fei, will protect you. Xiao Fei and his millions of experts charged onto the battlefield. With their addition, the pressure on the martial heaven continent's side was greatly reduced. At this moment, the other 2 spatial gates also opened. Actually, 2 giant trees propped them open, and spiritual qi gushed into the continent. It's the spirit world's life god tree and the star field divine world's ling shi, exclaimed Chu Yao. When the spirit world's warriors charged into the continent through the gate, their arrows also rained down on the battlefield. Also, from Ling Shi's side, countless spirit race warriors flew out, attacking the other direction. Both sides looked to be from the same race, but they were actually from different branches. The spirit world's warriors were all women, while the spirit race on Ling Shi's side had men as well as women. Back then, the spirit world's life god tree had received the nourishment of Long Chen's primal chaos soil, which caused it to thrum with life. Its warriors then grew stronger day by day along with it. Luckily, both the spirit world and the star field divine world remembered the aid that Long Chen had provided them. Hence, when the world's spatial walls weakened, they opened a gate and came to help him. Arrows rained down. Although the wounds caused by these arrows were not lethal, the arrows would embed themselves in flesh and sprout, sucking away the target's life force. After that, those struck quickly became masses of wood, unable to fight. All of the immemorial path, the spirit world, and the star field divine world's experts had come to reinforce Long Chen and the others, and this fact reinvigorated the martial heaven continent's experts. At the same time, they felt even greater admiration for Long Chen. These people had only come because of him. The mother tree and the life god tree were in their true forms. At this moment, 2 giant trees covered practically the entire martial heaven continent with their crowns. An emerald mark then appeared on each of the martial heaven continent's experts' foreheads and instantly healed their wounds whenever they were injured. As long as they weren't killed in one blow, they could be said to possess undying bodies. Since the Dragonblood warriors already had the protection of the healing warriors, with the addition of this blessing, they became even more unrestrained. "Azure Dragon Slaughter Formation," shouted Xiachen. Right away, the Dragonblood warriors moved into the shape of a long dragon, with Guoran, Xiachen, and the 4 captains as the head of the dragon. This grand formation then charged through the battlefield. The Dragonblood Legion was like a sharp blade weaving through the battlefield. At this moment, the very world was already dyed red from the killing, and the martial heaven searing had become a sea of blood. This was a battle to seize these heavens. Vile beings! The 9-headed lion cursed furiously. He was blocked by Wild, Nangong Zhu, Baiting Rushuang, and the others, while also had to be on guard against the spirit race's arrows. He was gradually forced away from Yun Tian's barrier. "We can't stall any longer. Have the gods descend," shouted the 9-headed lion. He quickly retreated. At the same time, Yi Ming, the Alldevil Heavenwalker, and the Blood Fiend Devil Lord pulled back. They retreated all the way to their respective spatial gates before they formed hand seals. "With my blood as the guide, my soul as the bridge, I ask the heavenly god to possess my body." The 4 of them shouted in unison, and blood-soul energy burst forth. After that, the spatial gates shuddered and translucent figures walked out of the spatial gates. Illusory figures walked out of the spatial gates, the aura of divine Daos flowing around them. Right now, everyone's soul involuntarily quivered. They actually had an urge to kowtow. Are those really gods? Shocked cries rang out as they felt an instinctual fear. Gods stood above the mortal world. They were existences that controlled the fates of mortal experts. As soon as they appeared, the world trembled as if it couldn't contain their existence. Not good. The channel has been mostly opened. Although the gods are unable to descend with their true bodies, spiritual clones can pass. Maruyun's expression changed. He hadn't expected this battle to draw even god incarnations over. Although Maruyun was a follower of the wealth god, he didn't have the ability to have the wealth god's power descend. The other side clearly viewed this battle as something that they had to win at all costs. Hence, they didn't give the martial heaven continent any chance. Once Yi Ming and the others had the god incarnations possessing them, they would be on a completely different level. They could then be considered demigods. Furthermore, there were still the endless armies of invaders. Although the reinforcements from the immemorial path, the spirit world, and the star field divine world were powerful, they were only able to maintain an absolute defense against them. A counterattack wasn't possible. In other words, they could only watch as those god incarnations descended. The high priest then looked toward Long Chen and saw that a vague sovereign crown had condensed on his head. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that the nine-headed lion and the others were so panicked that they had done this. If Long Chen did become a sovereign, it would be a disaster for them. At this moment, the void trembled and Yi Ming's eyes changed. He seemed to have become a different person as divine energy gushed out of him. Also, a vague figure could be seen behind him. Yi Ming was the first to complete the god incarnation, and he immediately shot toward Long Chen. "Stop him!" shouted Emon Yen. The four supreme divine items attacked together. Boom! As a result, Wild, Emon Yen Yujichio, and Ziyen hacked up blood, flying back. Even their combined power was unable to stop the demigod Yi Ming. "A group of ants thinks they can stop me?" Yi Ming's voice was strange and coarse. It was layered on top of the other, as if two people were speaking at the same time. Yi Ming then charged forward. But suddenly, the ground split open and giant wooden stakes flew out, cutting the world in two. The life god tree and the mother tree had summoned a wooden wall. The descendants of the immortal spirit race also dare to court death? The current Yi Ming was possessed by a god's incarnation. It could even partially be said that a god was controlling him. That god clearly recognized the origins of the life god tree and the mother tree and knew that they weren't fighting races. Yi Ming's spear blazed with light. The powerful divine energy instantly ignited all of its runes. With a single thrust, that giant wooden wall exploded, appearing incredibly weak in front of Yi Ming. In his demigod state, he had entered a different kind of realm, above all of them. However, this kind of possession would definitely cause immense harm to the body being possessed. A mortal body was not capable of containing a god. If it weren't for this pressing situation, the nine-headed lion and the others definitely wouldn't have used this move. If Long Chen did become a sovereign, none of them would be able to suppress him. If Long Chen managed to close the spatial channels, they would all be killed. However, at the same time, their blood and souls were suppressed and being damaged. As time passed, their souls would eventually reach the point where they simply died. This god possession was extremely dangerous, but the power they gained in exchange was extremely terrifying. Yi Ming was unrivaled in this state. The high priest, Maruyun, Ling Yunzi, and the other experts joined forces with Emon Yen and the others to fight Yi Ming, but they were still being pushed back. If it weren't for the protection of the mother tree and the life god tree, they would be in danger of being killed. But even with their full power, Yi Ming was slowly getting closer to the core. In the distance, 3 more explosions rang out, and the nine-headed lion, the Alldevil Heavenwalker, and the blood fiend Devil Lord's bodies quivered. The figures of their gods appeared behind them, causing the world to shake. The 3 of them had completed the god possession. Thus, everyone's hearts sank. Even a single Yi Ming already required everyone's power to slow down. If 3 more attacked at the same time, there would be no way to block them. Furthermore, at this moment, the giant egg on the Yin-Yang world's altar began to break. Large pieces of its shell fell. The wolf god is waking up. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord was delighted. Unlike Yi Ming, he hadn't taken a shortcut to become a sovereign, so his foundation was solid. Hence, even though he had the god incarnation possessing him, he was mainly the one in control. The shell broke apart, revealing a giant snow wolf. Its white fur slowly stood on end. At this moment, a terrifying aura rose. It was like an ancient beast had awoken to slaughter all life. Its aura was terrifying and ominous, making people's souls quiver. It slowly stood but seemed a bit weak, its body shuddering. It began to sniff around. It then licked up a piece of its shell and bit down. As a result, a metallic ringing rang out. The shell that was tougher than a divine item was actually crushed and consumed by it. Its aura grew even more terrifying when it devoured the shell. Its fur grew brighter, making it appear even more divine. In just a few breaths' time, it had consumed its entire shell. As it ate the shell, its body went through an immense transformation. It stood, showing taut lines on its body that was filled with wild energy. However, from the start, it hadn't opened its eyes. It seemed as if it couldn't open them. Using my blood, I give light to the heavenly wolf god. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord formed hand seals and spat out a mouthful of blood. It then transformed into 2 runes that embedded onto the wolf god's eyelids. Mighty wolf god, open your eyes. Kill as much as you please on this hunting ground. The giant snow wolf slowly opened its eyes. At that moment, Meng Qi let out a startled cry. That gaze, it was incredibly familiar. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord stood in front of the snow wolf and pointed at the battlefield ahead, shouting, "Mighty wolf god, all the life forms ahead of you can be slaughtered as you please. Unleash your dash boom." Suddenly, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord's voice was cut off. The snow wolf's claw fell, slamming into his body. As a result, the earth shuddered and giant cracks spread in every direction, instantly covering half of the central plains. The land was almost shattered, but its power wasn't the most shocking thing. It was the fact that it would attack the Blood Fiend Devil Lord after awakening. For a moment, both friends and foes were simply stunned. Even Yi Ming, who was possessed by a god, stared in disbelief at the snow wolf. When the snow wolf pulled back its claw, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord had vanished. He was dead in both body and soul, not even his corpse remaining. He died. Before becoming a god, he first became a ghost? The Blood Fiend Devil Lord was killed by a single claw from the snow wolf. Considering how excited he had been with his back facing toward the snow wolf, he had probably been anticipating the sight of the snow wolf slaughtering everyone on the battlefield. But before it even got started, everything was ended by that claw. Suddenly, a translucent figure floated out of the ground. That was the god's incarnation, and it was completely enraged. The snow wolf had killed the Blood Fiend Devil Lord, leaving nowhere for the incarnation to go. Not just anyone was capable of accepting a god's incarnation. They had to have faith energy as a vector. Without a host, the incarnation was unable to unleash any of its power. You damn animal dash. The incarnation's roar was cut off when it was devoured into a large mouth. There was no struggle at all. The incarnation was simply swallowed by the snow wolf and vanished, stunning everyone. The snow wolf then let out a howl. The earth crumbled, and the stars quivered as if they would fall. After that, the void behind its back shuddered, and an image of a full moon appeared as fragments of space-time blew apart. This full moon was a blood moon, and its light filled the world. The image of a snow wolf standing in the sky was deeply imprinted in people's souls. "It's little Snow." When the snow wolf howled, the Dragonblood warriors cried out excitedly. That howl contained a supreme law that caused the image of little Snow to appear in the Dragonblood warriors' minds. It told them that it had returned. It had gone through nirvanic rebirth and completely transformed. Seeing this, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, and the others wept emotionally. Back then, little Snow had died to the curse of one of the corrupt path's experts. Back then, everyone's heart had broken, including Long Chen's. But now, little Snow had made a powerful return. Suddenly, the space beneath little Snow's feet exploded, and it transformed into a white bolt of lightning shooting toward the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion. Neither of them understood what was happening. However, the two of them roared and divine energy exploded out of them. The three of them clashed fiercely, shaking the world. As a result, both the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion were sent flying. They left giant cracks in the earth and were flung all the way to the martial heaven searing. The terrain of the continent was changing completely. The power of gods had surpassed people's comprehension. Seeing that Little Snow was so powerful, the Dragonblood warriors cheered. Suddenly, Little Snow raised its head and roared. In the sky, the stars shuddered, and the blood moon caused the world to twist. After that, endless wind energy gathered toward Little Snow. When a ball of light appeared in Little Snow's mouth, an ear-piercing sound rang out. What terrifying wind energy! Tangwonner couldn't help crying out in shock. As a wind cultivator, and having refined a wind attribute divine bone, her control over wind energy had reached a kind of limit. However, the wind energy that Little Snow was using did not belong to this world. There was a giant gulf between their powers. Compared to Little Snow's wind energy, the martial heaven continent's wind energy was like a rice straw that encountered a sharp blade. At this moment, endless wind blades had gathered inside Little Snow's mouth. They were moving so fast that it looked as if they were static. As the sphere of wind blades quivered, space was torn apart and the laws crumbled. A vacuum appeared around Little Snow. Boom! Suddenly, Little Snow spat the sphere of wind blades out. It then suddenly grew larger and flew toward the martial heaven searing. The martial heaven continent's wind energy was being sucked into the sphere. Just as the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion flew out of the martial heaven searing, this sphere of wind blades struck them. Boom! The sphere exploded, causing the water to burst and crash against both shores. Countless mountains were devoured by crazy waves and blasted apart. This attack affected a large portion of the martial heaven continent and left the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion covered in blood. The range of this attack was so huge that there was no way to block it. Forcibly receiving it resulted in them being seriously wounded. Even the god incarnations weakened. Boom! Little Snow's giant figure charged after the two of them, and its sharp claws tore through the void. It was completely unstoppable. The Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion tried to counterattack, but Little Snow's body was so terrifyingly strong that their divine items couldn't even harm its fur. Furthermore, the divine energy surging around it was even stronger than what was coming from the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion. The two of them were then forced further and further back all the way to the northern source. "Yi Ming, come help!" shouted the nine-headed lion. He had no idea what this snow wolf was, but even with both of them joining forces, they were unable to retaliate. If this continued, they might be killed. However, Yi Ming simply snorted and ignored them, going straight for Long Chin. His only target was Long Chin, so everyone else's life or death mattered little to him. Bastard! The nine-headed lion cursed furiously. Yi Ming had ruined their plan at the start, and now the god possessing him was just as selfish. Split up! The nine-headed lion suddenly shouted, and the two of them flew in different directions. This way, Little Snow would only be able to chase one of them. Little Snow ultimately chose to target the nine-headed lion, causing him to turn green. He cursed inside. If they were both four-legged, why did Little Snow have to make things hard on him? The Alldevil Heavenwalker's speed was clearly slower than his, so Little Snow should have chosen him. Boom! Little Snow's claw fell and the nine-headed lion coughed up blood, unable to beat Little Snow. After that, Little Snow bit down on his neck, causing him to scream. Two of his heads were swallowed by Little Snow, turning him into the seven-headed lion. "Little Snow, come here quickly!" Just as Little Snow was about to chase after and kill him, Meng Qi's spiritual call came from the center of the continent. Little Snow was most familiar with Long Chen and Meng Qi. Hence, when it heard Meng Qi's cry, it immediately looked back. It noticed that the Alldevil Heavenwalker had charged back toward Long Chen. With a furious roar, it abandoned the nine-headed lion and charged back toward the battlefield. Boom. Little Snow's claw fell toward the Alldevil Heavenwalker, and the earth split apart all the way to the end of the continent. Despite using his full power to defend, the Alldevil Heavenwalker still hacked up blood and was sent flying. However, the direction he flew in was where Long Chen was. At the same time, the Martial Heaven Continent's experts were impacted by that divine power, and some of the weaker people were killed. Not good. Little Snow has just awoken and cannot perfectly control its own power yet. Meng-Chi turned pale. That claw of Little Snow's had torn open a hole in the Martial Heaven Continent's defenses. Haha. Even as the Alldevil Heavenwalker hacked up blood, he laughed. Borrowing the opening created by Little Snow's claw, he charged toward the barrier and unleashed a single palm. Boom. The barrier rumbled. Inside of it, blood leaked out of Yun Tian's mouth and dripped onto his white robes. Boss Yun Tian! Mo Nian roared furiously. He charged toward the Alldevil Heavenwalker. Little ant, you can scram. The Alldevil Heavenwalker sneered and unleashed another palm. Devil Chi erupted, forming a ray of light that blocked Mo Nian. Little Snow, don't, shouted Meng-Chi. Little Snow was about to unleash another claw. But in its newly born state, it didn't know how to control its own power. After this attack, the Alldevil Heavenwalker wouldn't necessarily be killed, but the barrier might be instantly destroyed. Hence, Little Snow's claw paused, hanging in midair. Come you little brute, provoked the Alldevil Heavenwalker, having noticed the problem with Little Snow's power as well. He then unleashed a second palm on the barrier. Boom. Countless ripples appeared within the barrier, and more blood spurted out of Yun Tian's mouth. His bright eyes dimmed. Cracks were now appearing throughout his body just like the barrier. Alldevil Heavenwalker, if you have guts, come at your daddy Mo, roared Mo Nian, his voice hoarse. But he was completely blocked by the Alldevil Heavenwalker's divine Dao power. Little Snow, go block the nine-headed lion. He's coming back, shouted Meng-Chi. The nine-headed lion was charging over. If he also got in, it would only make things worse. Little Snow roared and charged toward the nine-headed lion. The latter was sent flying before he could enter the core, and one of his legs was ripped off. The Alldevil Heavenwalker ignored the nine-headed lion's predicament. He was smiling sinisterly at Yun Tian. Yun Tian, I'll send you to your father. Do you have any last words? The Martial Heaven Continent birthed me. I can do nothing to repay the favor, but if I could use my blood and soul to protect this world, I would die 100 deaths with no regrets, said Yun Tian, his voice resounding through the air. Sovereign Yun Tian! The commoners protected within the core cried out. Although Yun Tian wasn't a formal sovereign, in their hearts, he was a supreme sovereign. The 5 sovereigns had given everything for the Martial Heaven Continent, and Yun Tian had received the baton from Sovereign Yunshang, using his own life to carry out the sovereign's will. The sovereigns didn't even leave any of their own legacies for others to worship. Nonsensical monsters and ignorant ideas had millions of brainless followers worshipping them, but while the sovereigns protected the people, the latter questioned their legends, instead believing in fake gods that they couldn't see or sense. When this tribulation descended, those fake gods that claimed to be omnipotent and capable of protecting their followers didn't appear. The only ones to protect them were the sovereigns. Great God of the stars, I beg you to protect your humble servant. Let this tribulation pass. Despite that, there were still people praying. That person was directly slapped out of his prayer by someone else who cursed him. What exactly are you praying for? You idiots, you have no idea who is really protecting you. The prayer furiously said, You're the idiot. It is precisely due to your ignorance that the gods sent down this tribulation to punish you. As long as you calmly prayed, letting the gods know you were sincere, this tribulation would immediately end. The God is omniscient, omnipotent. Everyone in this world has sins. We must dash. Someone furiously punched him in the middle of his speech, destroying his head. Chaos started amongst the commoners. By saying that everyone had sins, he provoked countless people. Sovereigns were also people. Did the sovereigns also have sins? The cultivators within the core region hastily suppressed things to avoid large-scale casualties. Xia Yuluo sighed. The most frightening aspect of foolish people is that they don't see their own foolishness. Wisdom is like a jade bottle the creator tossed to the ground and shattered. Some people picked up a bit more, some people picked up a bit less, and some people didn't even get a single piece. Xia Yuluo looked at Long Chen in the barrier. Then she looked at the ones fighting with their lives on the line for him, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, Yi Zhiqiu, Dong Mingyu, and the others. They are all willing to risk their lives for him. If it was me, would I also be willing? Wondered Xia Yuluo. She suddenly bitterly laughed. I would naturally be willing. But he can't treat me like them. Xia Yunfeng looked at this little sister of his and alternated between tears and laughter. He couldn't help feeling hurt for her. But matters of love sometimes had no solutions. Sometimes a single look could tie people together for a lifetime. Sometimes no matter what happened, there was no destiny between two people. Forcing it was not possible. On the battlefield, the fighting was growing more and more intense. Nian finally broke through and charged at the Alldevil Heavenwalker. In his fury, he unleashed suicidal moves just to force him off of the barrier. The Alldevil Heavenwalker didn't wish to be injured in this state. With him being the vessel of the god incarnation, any injuries could easily leave behind hidden wounds that could harm his foundation. Feeling furious, the Alldevil Heavenwalker focused on Nian. At the first opening, he smashed away the central plains cauldron and reached for Nian's throat. Nian sighed inside and closed his eyes. There was nothing to say. He simply wasn't as strong as his enemy. Bang! Just as Nian had accepted his death, a ray of light appeared in front of Nian, blocking the Alldevil Heavenwalker's attack. Who is it? The Alldevil Heavenwalker was startled. His attacking arm was numb. The gambling heavenly Dao's Hu Feng, here for pointers. Hu Feng's figure appeared in front of Nian. The die that always floated behind him was gone. Hu Feng. Nian had a bad feeling when he looked at Hu Feng. Brother Mo, you should go handle Yi Ming. Leave this place to me. To be able to have made friends like Brother Mo, Brother Yun, and Brother Long in this lifetime, I, Hu Feng, have no regrets. Scram! The Alldevil Heavenwalker roared. That blow just now was incredibly strange. It had caused his power to simply bounce off. Hence, he unleashed a palm at Hu Feng. However, the void shuddered suddenly and a giant die appeared in front of Hu Feng. It once more knocked aside the Alldevil Heavenwalker's attack. Brother Mo, don't hesitate, shouted Hu Feng. Brother Hu, hold on as long as you can. Once I kill Yi Ming, I'll immediately come to assist you. Nian shot off toward Yi Ming with the central plains cauldron. With him having left that side, the remaining fighters had been in a precarious position, so when he joined in again, the danger dropped quite a bit for every person. However, the feeling of unease in Nian's heart grew more intense when he looked at Hu Feng. The giant die spun in the air. As it spun, a giant whirlpool appeared in the air, and a terrifying aura came out of it, causing the Alldevil Heavenwalker's expression to change. The Alldevil Heavenwalker then attacked the die with his full power. After that, he found that the die was something that existed between illusion and reality. Half his power was repelled, and the other half was absorbed. It's useless. This is the strongest move of the gambling heavenly Dao, as well as the final move. I didn't join the fighting all this time because I was waiting for the most critical moment. To tell the truth, I feel a bit unwilling to use this move on you, because I know that there might be even stronger existences later. Hu Feng looked toward the 4 channels as the die spun. In the end, his gaze fell toward the silent, immortal palace. What do you mean? Demanded the Alldevil Heavenwalker. The gambling heavenly Dao's heirs have another name, the 50-50s. No matter how strong the opponent is, we always have a 50% chance of beating them. We gamble against heavens and earth, but the strongest move is to gamble our own life. Using my life as the stakes, I bet all my chips to grasp a trace of the ephemeral existence within the 10,000 Daos, said Hu Feng. He was a bit skinny with his scholarly appearance, but he also gave off the feeling of an unbending warrior. What absolute nonsense. The Alldevil Heavenwalker sneered and went around the die to attack Hu Feng. However, he was startled to find that despite clearly having gone around the die already, when he attacked, His palms still landed on the die. He didn't know if he had simply not moved or if this space was being controlled, causing him to move with it. He was shocked by Feng's die. He then coldly snorted, "I can't be bothered to waste time with you." The Alldevil Heavenwalker abandoned him and flew toward Longchen, only to find that no matter how he moved, Feng and his die would appear in front of him. Space-time seemed to have twisted around him, preventing him from passing. Life lies within the gamble. Using my life as the stakes, I gamble against you. Whether or not you are willing, you must accept this gamble, said Feng indifferently. Just at this moment, the die began to stop spinning. The number of dots at the top side kept changing until it finally stopped at 5. How regretful. It wasn't 6. Feng couldn't help being disappointed. In the end, I was never able to see the legendary 6 points. My gambling arts aren't good enough. I've shamed the ancestors. What kind of damn thing is this? It's just a heretical sorcery. Let's have a real battle of spears and blades, shouted the Alldevil Heavenwalker. This die gave him the chills. It was an extremely dangerous existence, and he had no idea how to counter it. The die slowly opened. But at the next moment, this divine item of the gambling heavenly Tao actually started to dissipate in midair. Haha, just like I said, it's just some sorcery to scare people. You can die now. The Alldevil Heavenwalker was first dumbfounded, but then he laughed and unleashed a punch at the die to fully break it. Boom. The die exploded, but it wasn't from the Alldevil Heavenwalker. It exploded on its own. After it exploded, a figure slowly appeared in its midst. It started out illusory but gradually grew real. It was a giant devil ape. The devil ape's body was pitch black with a bright luster. The power of its blood chi was absolutely terrifying. Heaven-reaching devil ape. This life form can't possibly appear in a lower realm. The Alldevil Heavenwalker jumped in fright. The god inside of him recognized the origin of this devil ape. Boom. The devil ape then unleashed a punch, sending the Alldevil Heavenwalker flying. He almost coughed up blood. It roared, and an image of the scholarly Feng appeared on its forehead. As for Feng's true body, it had strangely vanished. His blood chi and spiritual strength were both gone, and his aura had become one with this terrifying devil ape. Boom. The devil ape stepped through the air, causing heaven and earth to crumble. It shot toward the Alldevil Heavenwalker like a black shooting star. Seeing this scene, the Alldevil Heavenwalker was shocked and infuriated. This heaven-reaching devil ape was a life form from the higher plane. Its bloodline wasn't pure, but in the lower plane, its power was astonishing. Even in his demigod state, it was extremely difficult for the Alldevil Heavenwalker to fight this devil ape. Furthermore, Feng was controlling it, giving it plenty of combat experience. Hence, the Alldevil Heavenwalker wouldn't be able to handle it the same way he had handled Little Snow. The most shocking thing though was that the die had rolled a 5. If it had been a 6, he didn't know what kind of terrifying existence would have come out. The Alldevil Heavenwalker was blocked by the devil ape, while the 9-headed lion was being chased down wretchedly. If it weren't for Little Snow being unable to control its new power, the 9-headed lion would have long since been killed. But the latter was only able to barely hold on. The only one left was Yiming. He was pressing forward against the blockade of the Dragonblood Legion and the apex experts of the martial heaven continent. The high priest, Taoist Heavenly Feather, Maryun, the old man, and the other seniors were all fighting him. At the same time, Emon Yen, Wild Yijiqiu, Ziyen, and the other members of the junior generation were launching their strongest attacks at him. But in his demigod state, they were unable to stop him. Yiming's expression was growing more and more unsightly. At some point, an expression of terror appeared in his eyes. No! Yiming let out a cry of despair. His flesh suddenly split open, and his body was exploding inside of him. After that, Yiming's original aura and spiritual fluctuations were erased. Suddenly, divine energy burst out of Yiming, blowing away the surrounding experts. He instantly created a giant open space on the battlefield around himself. Useless thing, such a useless immortal sprout can be destroyed. I'm not going to tie myself down. Let me personally destroy this world. Yiming's voice was no longer his own voice. It was icy, dark, and bloodthirsty. The current him was no longer a demigod, but a full god. Yiming was no longer the old Yiming. The god had killed his soul and taken complete control of his body. At this moment, the divine energy fluctuations from Yiming caused space to fracture, and the high priest and the others couldn't even approach him. They were on two completely different levels. This god that possessed Yiming disliked the interference of his will, his blood, and his soul, so he directly killed Yiming. Now his divine energy circulated without anything inhibiting it. Yiming's expression was icy, and he began walking toward Longchen step by step. Everyone charged over to stop him, only for a spatial pressure to knock them back. How can this be happening? This is completely different from the past dark eras. Even gods have descended to the lower plane to fight. Maruyun's expression completely changed. This battle had far surpassed his expectations. For a single starfield's core, they were sacrificing so many life forms? Was that really worth it? Or did it mean that they had some ulterior motive? Yiming's gaze swept across Yun Tian, Emon Yen, Gu Yang, and the others. The latter kept trying to charge through, but the pressure of his divine energy did not allow it. Even the life god tree and the mother tree's energy was unable to approach Yiming. His divine energy blocked off everything so people could only watch. At this moment, Yun Tian's barrier began to crack under the pressure of divine energy. Yun Tian's body also cracked like porcelain. No! Emon Yen and the others howled furiously. Yun Tian was linked to this barrier, so if it broke, Yun Tian would die. However, no one was able to get past Yiming's divine energy. You can stop now. Suddenly, a figure with a sword on his back appeared in front of Yiming. When that person appeared, Yu Zifeng let out a startled cry. It was Yu Zifeng's master, the Heavenly Sword Gate's new sect master, Ling Yunzi. Despite the thrumming divine energy, he managed to stand before Yiming. It seemed that he was outside the scope of the divine Tao. I didn't expect an heir to the sword gods will to appear in this kind of low-level place. Not bad, it's actually the Annihilation Sword Tao, said Yiming with a look of slight astonishment. The fact that Ling Yunzi had comprehended the Annihilation Sword Tao was instantly seen through by Yiming. He truly stood at an even higher level. However, Ling Yunzi's expression didn't twitch at all. Despite being seen through, he calmly said to Yu Zifeng, "Watch closely. This is your master's final lesson to you. No matter what kind of opponent you're facing, as long as your heart comes out of its sheath, there is no one that you cannot cut down, even a god." Ling Yunzi's sword came out of its sheath like a bolt of lightning. He didn't hesitate at all. A brilliant sword light then illuminated the sky as he slashed his sword at Yiming. Even if his opponent was a god, Ling Yunzi was so confident. Not knowing your own power. Yiming snorted and waved his hand. The power of a divine Tao transformed into a sharp sword slashing toward Ling Yunzi. Boom! At this moment, divine light exploded and Yiming's sword was hacked in two. As the sword light fell, everything came to a stop. Ling Yunzi held his sword, pointing it to the ground at an angle. As for Yiming, he stared in astonishment. A thin line slowly grew from the top of Yiming's head all the way to his throat. Everyone was stunned. Ling Yunzi had not just broken Yiming's attack but had split his head. That was a god he was fighting, a true god. Even the high priest and Maruyun were dumbfounded. This sword had surpassed the power of a divine Tao. It had reached an incomprehensible level. The world was deathly silent as if time had stopped. Ling Yunzi and Yiming continued to stare at each other. Finally, it was Yiming who sighed in admiration. What a powerful sword. If it was my true body here, I really might have been killed. Too bad though, this is just a spiritual body of mine. Your annihilation would only have maximum effect on a true body. It really is regretful. Ling Yunzi shook his head, sighing. It seems that the person you are all protecting is this world's son of the heavens. You should be his companion Tao Protector, right? For even the Tao Protector to be so powerful, it seems that this era's heavenly son is incredible. Our luck is really good. Such a strong son of the heavens can be refined into a human pill of incalculable value, said Yi Ming, glancing toward Long Chen. Suddenly, Yi Ming's divine energy surged. After that, countless runes appeared, and the wound to his head slowly healed. No more blood flowed. I should warn you, if you can't kill him, then you and everyone behind you will meet a terrible end. Ling Yunzi's sword began to dissipate. Then his hand, arm, and body began to scatter. Master, Yu Zifeng wept. Just now, he had been delighted by Ling Yunzi's attack, thinking that his master had really managed to slay a god. But it was his master who died. Although your attack is sharp, breaking the power of my divine Tao and injuring my body, a sword cultivator's defensive power is too weak to endure the backlash of my divine power. You slashed me once, and in exchange you're dying. Sword cultivators are all like this, sneered Yi Ming. He began walking forward again as Ling Yunzi's body fully dissipated. Master! Yu Zifeng cried out. All his life, he had been a solitary character, but he viewed Ling Yunzi as his father. He couldn't accept this result. Zifeng, Master has returned to heaven and earth. Remember, when the sword is in your heart, your master will always be beside you. Just as Yu Zifeng howled in grief, a message rang out in his mind. I'll kill you. Hearing his master's final words, Yu Zifeng was unable to contain the pain, and his sword suddenly came out of its sheath, tearing the void apart. From the side, Emon Yen and the others cried out but were unable to stop him. As the domain of divine power was split open, Yu Zifeng charged through, ignoring the power of divine Tao just like Ling Yunzi to slash Yi Ming. Although you have sword will, you haven't comprehended a specific law of the sword Tao. Such an unrefined power is far lacking compared to your master. Yi Ming sneered and waved his hand. After that, astral winds blew and destroyed Yu Zifeng's sword into countless pieces that pierced through his body. If it weren't for the special clothes that Guo Ran and Xiachen had made for him, he might have died. In any case, he was covered in blood from having the fragments of his own sword pierce him. I'll kill you. Even with no sword, even with his body covered in blood, Yu Zifeng used his fingers as a sword, attacking again. You're in so much pain. I'll be a good person and send you to see your master. Yi Ming once more condensed a sword, slashing it at Yu Zifeng. Zifeng! The Dragonblood warriors cried out. If this sword landed, not even 10 lives would be enough for Yu Zifeng to survive. Blood splashed. However, everyone was shocked to see Yu Zifeng's fingers pierce Yi Ming's chest. As for Yi Ming's sword, it was caught by a sword made of white flames. A peerlessly beautiful woman in a white dress had appeared, blocking Yi Ming's divine sword. Everyone was dumbfounded. A person that no one had expected to come had appeared. Yu Qingxian descended like a fairy. Pill Valley had been hiding ever since the Dark Era's battle started, and there were all kinds of rumors stating that Pill Valley and the divine families were jackals of the same tribe. However, the Pill Fairy had appeared at this time to save Yu Zifeng. Yu Zifeng had used his fingers as a sword to pierce Yi Ming's chest. Driven by his fury and hate, Yu Zifeng finally comprehended the power of the sword god that Ling Yunzi had taught him. However, after this one attack, Yu Zifeng's body collapsed. He had used up all his power with this attack and fainted. The Pill Fairy waved her hand, sending Yu Zifeng out. After that, Emon Yen and the others received him. The Life God Tree's branches then wrapped around him to help him recover. With the Life God Tree, as long as someone didn't instantly die, they could still be saved. With Yu Zifeng saved, everyone looked at the Pill Fairy, unable to imagine why she would appear now. Brahma's power? You are Lord Brahma's follower? What are you doing? Yi Ming stared at the Pill Fairy in shock and then anger. He spoke of Lord Brahma with reverence, but he was infuriated that one of his followers would block him. There is no need for you to kill him, said the Pill Fairy indifferently. There was divine light flowing around the Pill Fairy's body, giving her a holy and sacred appearance. Her voice also contained unquestionable might. Fine. Then please get out of the way. I only want this person and the core, said Yi Ming. No. You can't kill him. The Pill Fairy shook her head. Yi Ming's fury burst. Just who are you? If you are Lord Brahma's follower, you shouldn't be blocking me. We're all listening to Lord Brahma's orders in this battle. Do you want to switch sides now? Have you betrayed Lord Brahma? Yi Ming's furious roar stunned everyone. Yi Ming had just inadvertently exposed a shocking secret. It seemed that this entire battle was due to Lord Brahma. Betraying him doesn't matter. I never believed in him. I also had no choice in becoming his divine daughter. With me present today, don't even think about passing, said the Pill Fairy. Traitor! I'll tidy up Lord Brahma's followers today, roared Yi Ming, his divine energy erupting. A torrential power forced back the Pill Fairy's body. Boom! The space behind the Pill Fairy collapsed, revealing two divine statues. It was Lord Brahma and fallen Dainate. At this moment, divine light filled the world, and the sound of sacred chanting resounded. Divine light shone out of the Pill Fairy. Bullshit! You are a traitor! How can you still use Lord Brahma's power? Raged Yi Ming. The space beneath Yi Ming collapsed, and he was forced to retreat step by step. By the seventh step, he was already far into the distance. With Yi Ming repelled, Emon Yen and the others felt the pressure on them lessen. It was like they finally got a breath of air after drowning. Yi Ming's divine energy was suffocating. Boom! An intense explosion shook the world. Yi Ming was knocked back by the Pill Fairy's sword, and then the Day-Night Furnace appeared, smashing him. With the support of the Pill Fairy's divine energy, its power was completely unprecedented. It was like a star smashing into Yi Ming's body. Yi Ming was then sent smashing into the earth, causing it to ripple like water. After that, a wave of earth soared into the sky, burying countless cities. Defend! Song Mingyuan and Li Qi hastily summoned an earthen shield around everyone. At the same time, the Life God Tree and the Mother Tree's branches wove into another barrier. Boom! The branches exploded along with the earthen shield. People felt like their bodies had been wrung. When they crawled out of the earth, they found that the entire world's terrain had changed. They couldn't even tell its original appearance. The Mother Tree and the Life God Tree once more spread their branches. After that, Guoran looked in Yun Tian's direction and saw that his barrier was still fine, allowing him to sigh with relief. However, when he looked closer, he saw that Yun Tian's eyes had already lost their light. His physical body was dead, and only his soul was still maintaining the barrier. The barrier had reached its limit, but with its protection, everything happening in the outside world was unable to disturb Long Chen. Boss Yun Tian. Emon Yen couldn't help tearing up. Yun Tian was an astonishingly talented person, yet he had been willing to be a protector instead of the main character, essentially covering up his glorious light. At this moment, more and more of the invading experts began to pop out of the ground as well. They continued attacking Yun Tian. Kill them all, roared Emon Yen. Yun Tian's death filled him with pain, and this hatred was cast on these invaders. His arrows then rained down and blood-colored light glowed on them. Emon Yen was using his essence blood as arrows, which left a path of devastation in their path. They reached all the way to the end of the world, leaving a line of corpses and blood. With Emon Yen's overflowing killing intent, he didn't mind sacrificing the power of his essence blood for greater killing power. Right now, killing countless invaders vented the hatred in his heart. A blood debt must be repaid with blood. Boom! In the distance, the Brahma divine diagram appeared, causing space to collapse. It instantly sucked Yi Ming in. The Pill Fairy and Yi Ming then began to fight inside of the divine diagram. All of a sudden, a roar reverberated through the air, and the nine-headed lion's aura was gone. Just like Yi Ming, his god was infuriated by his weakness and killed him to fully possess him. After that, the Alldevil Heavenwalker's aura also erupted to a new level. With a palm, the heaven-reaching devil ape was blown apart. It wasn't just the heaven-reaching devil ape that was destroyed, but Hu Feng's aura also vanished along with it. Amongst the remains of the devil ape were a few broken bone tiles. Those were the 9 heavenly tiles of the gambling heavenly Tao. But now, they were broken and fell into the ground, their divine light extinguished and covered by the earth. Hu Feng, Guoran and the others were filled with grief as Hu Feng fell. Their comrades were dying one by one. All of you can die now. The Alldevil Heavenwalker suddenly unleashed a punch at the void. As a result, the 4 spatial gates were blown open, and countless foreign experts charged out. It's over. When people saw these newcomers' auras, they shut their eyes. The majority of these new experts actually had a trace of a sovereign's aura. Some even had the aura of a divine Tao and could be considered demigods. This wasn't a battle anymore but a slaughter. It was a group of demigods slaughtering mortals. The martial heaven continent's people had lost all their hopes. When the 4 channels were blown open, it was as if the entire world was crumbling and cracks spread in the void. A mortal world like the martial heaven continent could not contain this much divine power. Being able to exchange blows with a god as a mortal is enough to brag for a lifetime. Gu Yang spat out some blood and cursed. Although that was what he said, the feeling of helplessness and despair when facing armies from the divine world wasn't something simple bravery could contend against. Boom. Suddenly, the sky at the center of the martial heaven continent shattered. A sword then came out of that shattered space, containing an overwhelming aura of death. After that, sword chi left a giant cut throughout the entire central plains. Any invaders touched by that sword chi were wiped out of existence, whether they had touched upon the sovereign realm or were demigods. At this moment, death chi flowed into the continent, and a pair of figures appeared within the black mist. They both wore black dresses, a stark contrast to their pale white skin, and both figures were identical. They both had a pair of sapphire eyes that were like gemstones in the night. Their beauty was so otherworldly that even every single one of their eyelashes was symmetrical. It was a suffocating beauty that shouldn't exist in this world. Big sisters, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others cried out. These were the Netherworld's gods, Ming Tsongyue and Leng Yuan. For most of the Dragonblood Legion, their impression of these two had grown very light because they were gods. Mortals' memories of such things would slowly fade. However, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others had received gifts from Leng Yuan, so they had certain karma binding them together, allowing them to remember. You want to kill my man? Then you'll have to pass through me first. It seems that it's been a long time since I've slaughtered anyone. I wonder if I'm rusty. Leng Yuan held her bone sword, overlooking the invading experts with a Nethergod's domineering air. As she said this, she swept out her bone sword, and divine energy shook the world. With a single wave, the entire battlefield was emptied. It was unknown just how many invaders she killed with that one blow. You lower gods dare to interfere in this battle? Do you know what kind of calamity you've made for yourselves? Shouted the Alldevil Heavenwalker. At this moment, Ming Tsongyue looked at Long Chen. His eyes were closed and he was still seated in the air. She then smiled. Loving him was already a calamity. Who cares so much? Ming Tsongyue's figure shook. She then appeared in front of the Alldevil Heavenwalker and unleashed a slash of her sword, sending the Alldevil Heavenwalker flying into the distance. Half of his body was destroyed. After sending the Alldevil Heavenwalker flying, she attacked the 9-headed lion. However, his entire body lit up and he chose to flee rather than fight. This resulted in her attack passing by him and continuing to the east. The eastern wasteland was then cut in 2 halves. Ming Tsongyue and Leng Yuan were true gods. If they were to descend to the martial heaven continent during ordinary times, they would be restricted by the laws of this place. However, at this time, the laws of the continent were in chaos, and the spatial walls of the world had weakened. Because of it, the two of them managed to pierce through the path of reincarnation to appear here. Although the two of them had paid quite a price for this, they managed to reach this battlefield. Ming Tsongyue's destructive blows scared the martial heaven continent's experts. This was a true god. She could destroy the world. They had received reinforcements from the immemorial path, the spirit world, and the star-field divine world. Those people had come for Long Chen. Now, even true gods had crossed worlds, and based on Ming Tsongyue's look toward Long Chen and her words, they had also come for him. Legend had it that Long Chen's charisma was so great that his pickup arts were unrivaled. It was unknown just how many peerless beauties had been lured away by him. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan'er, Yu Zhiqiu, and Dong Mingyu were all nation-toppling beauties, and yet they all were undyingly loyal to Long Chen. Even the Pill Fairy, his mortal enemy, had come at a critical moment, betraying her own faith. Hence, people were filled with disbelief. Could picking up girls also reach the realm of surpassing all laws and surpassing the heavens? Even gods could be seduced? This was definitely a heaven-defying ability. At the core where the barrier was, Xia Yuluo simply sighed with a bitter smile. Perhaps only people like them are a match for him. The women appearing around Long Chen simply grew stronger and stronger. Now, even gods had appeared, and this actually ended up comforting Xia Yuluo. She seemed to realize what their difference was. However, she didn't realize that the real difference was in the heart. She had implicated the deaths of many people in the Four Nations' ancient remnant due to her childish character, causing her to still be filled with shame and guilt to this day. She had then made it her life's mission to make up for those mistakes. Because of this, she began to see herself as a sinner, looking down on herself. That was the true reason why she gave up pursuing her own happiness, because she felt that she didn't deserve happiness. Regretfully, people could see others clearly, but they couldn't see themselves. She felt like being unhappy was the best way to atone for her sins. Xia Yunfeng, Xia Yunsong, and the others all understood the truth, but it wasn't something people could simply convince her of. Hence, they were powerless as well. Leng Yuan had wiped out the invading armies with a single slash. Only a few with the auras of sovereigns managed to escape the net and get to the army of the Dragonblood Legion. But any with the power of a divine Tao had been slain by her. While those sovereign experts were extremely terrifying, fortunately, Ming Songyue was able to force back the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the Nine-Headed Lion by herself, allowing Little Snow to return and guard everyone. Hence, the crisis was temporarily alleviated. Now, divine power raged on the battlefield. Every attack caused heaven and earth to collapse, deforming the martial heaven continent completely. Boom. With another blow, Ming Songyue forced the Nine-Headed Lion and the Alldevil Heavenwalker back once again. The two of them weren't a match for her. She was about to chase after them when her heart shook. She then appeared in front of Yun Tian's barrier. When she looked at Long Chen, her expression changed. Yuan, something seems to be wrong with Long Chen. Ming Songyue noticed that Long Chen's eyes were half open. Black lines were flickering within his eyes. Even as a god, those black lines terrified her. They possessed a destructive power that made her uneasy. Furthermore, as the stars flowed around him, they seemed to be absorbing endless resentment, causing Long Chen to become a bit foreign. Evil. Those are the 9-star heir's purgatory eyes. It proves that he's about to break through to the sovereign realm. The Pill Fairy's voice suddenly rang out from the Brahma divine diagram. Suddenly, waves of demigods came flooding out of the 4 spatial gates. At the same time, divine light appeared on top of Yi Ming, the Nine-Headed Lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker's heads. Their auras once more changed. The Brahma divine diagram was then broken. The god's full power was finally passing through the wall of ascension with the spatial gates fully open. Now, they were only limited in that it was their Yuan spirits who descended. Despite that, their power instantly soared, and the laws of the martial heaven continent were shattered. You dare to interfere in Lord Brahma's matters. You lower gods haven't even awakened your god seals. Who gave you the courage to do such a thing? Roared the Nine-Headed Lion as he attacked Ming Songyue. I don't know who Lord Brahma is, nor do I care. But if he dares to attack Long Chen, he has to get past me first, said Ming Songyue, slashing her sword. What ignorance! Anyone who shows disrespect to Lord Brahma will die a miserable death. The Alldevil Heavenwalker also charged over. You traitor, I'll settle things with you later. Yi Ming came flying out of the Brahma divine diagram. He managed to force back the Pill Fairy and charge toward Long Chen. However, just at that moment, he staggered, his expression changing. What did she say? A 9-star heir. Kill him. At first, they hadn't realized what the Pill Fairy had said. But the title of a 9-star heir terrified them. Yi Ming, the Nine-Headed Lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker suddenly charged toward Long Chen, their faces filled with terror. They even turned their backs on Ming Zhongyue. Leng Yuan flew back and attacked Yi Ming, forcing him back. But his powerful divine energy forced her back as well. The resulting shockwave from their clash shook the entire martial heaven continent. As a result, Yun Tian's barrier cracked even further. "Songyue, we can't stay here. Stop them," shouted Leng Yuan. As Nethergods, they didn't belong to this world. They were unable to replenish their power here, so it caused them to weaken more and more. At this moment, Leng Yuan and Ming Zhongyue crossed their bone swords, forming a giant cross. The divine marks on their foreheads lit up. Upon seeing this, Yi Ming, the nine-headed lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker's expressions changed. They hastily shot back, but they were too late. That giant cross was sucking them in. Nethergod cross seal. Ming Zhongyue and Leng Yuan shouted in unison. The three of them were now trapped within the cross. "Kill them," shouted Yi Ming. He attacked this strange seal from within but was unable to get out. He then chose to attack Ming Zhongyue and Leng Yuan. However, his attack passed through their bodies. The two of them seemed illusory, as if they didn't exist. It's useless. Their souls are linked to their divine throne. If the divine throne isn't broken, their true bodies won't die. Attack the seal. They can't last much longer, shouted the Alldevil Heavenwalker, seemingly knowing a bit about this technique. "Kill that person. Do everything you can to kill him, even if you have to kill yourself," howled the nine-headed lion. The demonic beast race instantly went crazy. They then charged recklessly, and when they were blocked by little snow, they directly self-detonated. The others also seemed to have been put under a spell, and they charged forward, completely unafraid of death. "Jianying, protect yourself. I'm going out." The old man made his determination. Their enemies were unleashing an all-out assault, so they could only use their lives to hold them back. "Remember our agreement. You must come back alive. Don't break my heart, all right?" Chu Jianying caressed the old man's face warmly. "All right. I promise you that I will come back alive." The old man nodded. With a final look at Chu Jianying, he charged forward with the heaven-splitting blade. Suddenly, the heaven-splitting divine tablet behind him exploded. In that instant, the old man's aura surged, and a flame burned on top of his head. Seeing that, the heaven-splitting divine sect's disciples were filled with pain. The divine tablet had ignited the accumulated karmic luck of the sect. In other words, after this battle, the heaven-splitting divine sect would be no more. "Kill!" The heaven-splitting divine sect's disciples howled, their eyes red. The divine tablet had sacrificed itself to give all of them heaven-defying power. As long as that flame remained above the old man's head, they would be supported by this heaven-defying power. Bao Buping and Chang Hao then charged out, unleashing consecutive blows of the ninth form of Split the Heavens. Even demigods were unable to block them. Boom! The majestic Shintian Tower also exploded, transforming into runes that fell onto the Shintian Dao sect's disciples. The disciples wept. After today, there would be no more Shintian Dao sect. Zhao Zian, Hua Shiyu, Mu Qingxian, and the other disciples felt empty inside. Warriors of the Shintian Dao sect, do not feel grief. Whether the Shintian Dao sect exists or not, we will always be disciples of the Shintian Dao sect. Today's battle will determine the future of the martial heaven continent's countless lives. We have no choice. All we can do is fight. Li Tianxian was the first to charge out. "Kill!" The Shintian Dao sect's disciples roared crazily and attacked the invaders with no fear. Instead, they attacked with hatred that was carved into their bones and engraved in their hearts. With the heaven-splitting divine sect and the Shintian Dao sect taking the lead, the martial heaven continent's various powers also began igniting their karmic luck to fight their final battle. At this moment, the Dragonblood warriors were in a grand formation slaughtering the invaders. They became the final line of defense. This was a bloody and cruel battle. Within the tempest of blood, one warrior after another perished. At the core, countless people wept. As they were too weak, they could only watch as these experts protecting them fell one by one. That kind of pain could not be described with words. Casualties even began to appear amongst the Dragonblood Legion. This battle was too bloody, too cruel. Seeing their brothers fall one by one, the Dragonblood warriors roared like beasts. Boom! Suddenly, the void shuddered and the flames surrounding Chu Jianying were extinguished. The power of the martial heaven virtue tablet was exhausted. Master! Yi Lingshan suddenly seemed to go mad and frantically rushed over to Chu Jianying. It seemed that Chu Jianying had been consumed by the battle, only thinking about killing more enemies. Hence, she didn't keep track of how much time remained. With the support of the martial heaven continent gone, she was instantly surrounded by enemies. Alliance Head, Retreat. The Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples tried to charge through the tide of invaders. Some of them even directly self-detonated in order to open a path. However, there were too many enemies, and they were charging forward recklessly with no regard for their own lives either. Yi Lingshan was also repelled before she could reach Chu Jianying. She could only watch as her master was drowned by the enemies. At this moment, her vision darkened and she almost fainted. Jianying! A giant blade swept through the air, blasting apart the crowd of invaders. The old man had charged over, but he was one step too late. Without the support of the martial heaven virtue tablet, Chu Jianying's soul was unable to endure the power of a divine Tao. She fell limply. No! The old man grabbed Chu Jianying's body, and he howled like a beast, repeatedly shouting her name. However, her soul had already vanished. No matter how he called her, she wouldn't wake up. No, this can't be real. We had an agreement to marry after this battle. Jianying, don't scare me. Wake up. You can't die. The old man shook Chu Jianying's body, but she didn't reply at all. His crying broke people's hearts. The two of them had spent a lifetime fighting and had missed out on their springtime of youth. After continuing to fight for so many years, when they finally prepared to marry, Chu Jianying would never wake up again. When the two of them fought, the old man was so angry that it felt like he might explode. But Chu Jianying always remained in his heart. Now, he wished she would wake up. Even if she angered him every day, he would consider it a blessing. No! The old man cried out. He had missed out on many blessings in this lifetime. Now that he finally grabbed hold of one, it was mercilessly taken away. This was the world's cruelest torture. Old man, get back. Our own support is running out. Bao Buping, Chang Hao, and the other disciples were doing their best to protect the old man, but he was lost in his pain. He didn't hear them. Boom. Just at this moment, the Nethergod seal was broken. As a result, Ming Cangyue and Leng Yueyan vanished. They had used up all their energy. All of you can die now. Yi Ming, the nine-headed lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker descended from the sky, their divine energy exploding out of them. This apocalyptic power was enough to instantly wipe out everyone. Long Chen, wake up. In that instant, everyone despaired. They had nothing they could use to face the power of gods and could only wait for death. Meng Qi turned back to look at Long Chen before painfully shutting her eyes. Boom. Suddenly, an astral barrier appeared in the air, repelling all three waves of divine energy. This barrier appeared to be made of stars, and not even the power of a divine Tao could shake it. Long Chen. Boss. This astral barrier appeared just as everyone fell into despair. They then looked toward Long Chen to see that he was standing. His black robes fluttered without any wind. Countless stars revolved in his eyes as if there was an entire cosmos within them. Standing there, he appeared like the ruler of gods, an incomparably domineering existence that caused worlds to shake. Long Chen had woken up at the most critical moment. When he came to his senses, he almost didn't recognize this world. As the stars revolved in his eyes, he seemed to be able to see into the past. Everything that had happened on the battlefield slowly flowed into his mind. The 5 sovereigns passed away. He saw Sovereign Han Wei's longing look and Sovereign Yun Shang's guilt. He also saw Yun Tian using his life to maintain the barrier to protect him. After that, Hu Feng's aura vanished, Ling Yunzi's aura vanished, and Li Tinxuan's aura vanished. Many familiar auras were gone. He then saw the old man weeping and the fiendish experts from other worlds. At this moment, killing intent exploded out of Long Chen's eyes. No, the old man has gone crazy. Suddenly, Bao Buping slammed a hand on the old man's back. With the final dregs of karmic luck of the heaven-splitting divine sect, the old man had actually forced his spiritual yuan to flow backward. It was a suicidal act. Long Chen directly rushed over. Looking at the old man, he couldn't help but cry. There was a pair of eyes saying that he had nothing holding him back from leaving any longer. The old man looked at Long Chen and nodded. Good child, you're finally awake. Now the martial heaven continent is saved. Don't blame me. I cannot wait long enough to see you wipe out all these fiends. I must accompany Jianying, so don't stop me. No, old man, you can't do this. We still need you, cried out Chong Hao. The old man shook his head and then looked at Chu Jianying in his embrace. He gently stroked her cheek. You've all grown up. You no longer need me, but Jianying does. Although she put on a strong act, she's actually scared of many things, especially the dark. If she's all alone on that black path, she'll be afraid. So, I have to accompany and protect her. If there was another lifetime, I'd be willing to be a mute. I'll just listen to whatever she says. If she's right, then good. If she's wrong, then so what? Is fighting over such things worth it? I fought with her for a lifetime already. The old man once more reversed the flow of his spiritual yuan, but Bao Buping kept his hand on the old man's back, preventing him from killing himself. Bastard, let go. Otherwise it will be too late, roared the old man. Old man, people could only weep. The old man had made his decision, and no one could change his mind. Good children. I've never begged anyone for anything in this life, but you can take this as me begging you. The old man looked at his disciples and sighed. With this, Bao Buping could only pull back his trembling hand and close his eyes. The old man then wore a smile of release, and the fire of his soul slowly extinguished. He left while holding the one he loved the most. No, Bao Buping, Chong Hao, Boss Bao, and the others wept. Although they normally fought, their feelings for each other were strong and sincere. They couldn't accept this. Long Chen's eyes were also filled with tears. Even as boundless astral energy flowed within his body, he couldn't save the old man. That feeling of powerlessness stoked his rage. Boom! The astral barrier shuddered as Yi Ming, the nine-headed lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker assaulted it. Only then were they startled out of their pain. The battle had not ended, and now was not the time to grieve. We'll kill them all as vengeance for the old man, roared Bao Buping. Let me avenge this enmity. Long Chen's figure suddenly vanished, reappearing outside of the barrier just as the three of them once more attacked. Die! Long Chen roared, his voice like thunder. As stars revolved around his body, the 10,000 Daos were collapsing. He then unleashed a single punch at the three of them. With a furious roar, Long Chen shattered the heavens. Yi Ming, the nine-headed lion, and the Alldevil Heavenwalker felt like a star had smashed into them. With a muffled grunt, the three of them were smashed into the ground, and they hacked up blood. That was God blood that was instantly incinerated by the laws of the world. Ah! Long Chen suddenly roared. This roar contained endless grief, endless anger, and blood-chilling killing intent. Right now, Long Chen's 6 stars appeared behind him. The Feng Fu star illuminated the Life Fate star, and the Life Fate star illuminated the Divine Gate star. They formed a triangle. The Alioth star, Enlightenment Palace star, and Nethergate star also linked up, forming their own triangle. They superimposed on each other. When the two triangles overlapped, they formed a 6-sided star, and an unprecedented apocalyptic power burst out of Long Chen. A ripple then spread on the battlefield, devouring the invaders before they even understood what was happening and blasting them into pieces. Hence, the entire battlefield turned red. Millions and millions were instantly blasted into blood mist. The complete 6-star battle armor had finally manifested after Long Chen became a sovereign at the 13th heaven stage. He finally stood at the peak of the martial path. Endless power surged within him. But so what? The 5 sovereigns were dead. Yun Tian was dead. Hu Feng was dead. Ling Yunzi was dead. Even the old man had died. All that power within him was useless. Die! With scarlet eyes, Long Chen unleashed a claw that raked through the ground, and a figure was pulled out of it. It was Yi Ming. Yi Ming was horrified. He was caught by a giant astral hand, and no matter how he struggled, he was unable to shake this astral power. You damnable invaders! Long Chen looked at Yi Ming with utmost hatred and pain. His face was twisted, making him seem like a crazed devil. Divine flame ignition. Yi Ming was so terrified that he ignited his own core. There was danger of his realm falling, but he could no longer bother with that. You want to ignite? Long Chen suddenly squeezed. Yi Ming, who was now enveloped in a burning divine flame, was still unable to escape his fate. He was squeezed until he exploded. Those flames were instantly extinguished. At this moment, a god from a higher plane was killed. Suddenly, the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion charged out of the ground. However, they weren't going for Long Chen but for the distant spatial gates. Unfortunately, a saber image swept through the air, destroying all 4 spatial gates. Seeing this, the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion were instantly dumbfounded. The legends were true. 9-star heirs were all heaven defiers, existences that fought across realms without effort. This was why when they learned that he was a 9-star heir, they did everything they could to kill him before he became a sovereign. Now that he was a sovereign, with his 6-star battle armor, Long Chen wiped out all his enemies on the battlefield. With just one attack, all of them were killed except for the 3 of them. Moreover, with Yi Ming crushed, that just left the 2 of them. Yi Ming had even ignited his own divine flame to temporarily multiply his power, but he still couldn't escape his fate. As for the 2 of them, there was nowhere for them to go. They couldn't win. Flee? They couldn't get away. The 2 of them felt like they had been tossed into hell. Long Chen held Evil Moon. Black chi swirled around it. At this moment, Long Chen's killing intent merged with Evil Moon's sinister aura. Black chi swirled around Long Chen's body as well when he stepped toward the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the 9-headed lion. He was like a devil king from hell. Don't kill us. We had to follow orders. I can tell you secrets regarding the 9-star heir, cried out the Alldevil Heavenwalker. In his fear, he actually knelt on the ground. Seeing that, the 9-headed lion also didn't hesitate, kneeling and crying out. That's right, the 9-star heirs are hunted throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands, especially by the 9 underworld hunters. They are specialized in finding you. We know many secrets that can help you. Don't kill us. Seeing these gods that looked down on all of them now begging for their lives, the martial heaven continent's experts were filled with scorn. These were gods? Such cowardly existences were gods? Suddenly, in the distance, the ground erupted. The divine family's immortal sealing palace slowly rose into the air. After the battle, the terrain had changed, and it had been buried beneath the ground. People had almost forgotten it until now. At this moment, its gates slowly opened. Long Outyen Yiliangchen, Jiang Wuchen, and Feng Fei all appeared. Feng Fei looked at Long Chen with a complicated expression, seemingly with some kind of pity. But the other 3 were filled with delight. All 4 of them had sovereign crowns on their heads now. Long Outyen sneered, Long Chen, so you are one of the 9-star demons. You hid yourself quite well, but you are fated to be killed by my hands. Last time, the immortal sealing palace's item spirit recognized your identity, so I've prepared quite a gift for you. Just so you know, I sacrificed all the immortal corpses and gave up their chances to become demigod bodies for this gift. It definitely won't disappoint you, ha. Over 30 figures walked out from the depths of the immortal sealing palace. These people were wearing black robes and had black chains around their waists. Every single one of them wore a blank face. On their foreheads was an immortal character, Underworld, and it emitted strange fluctuations. Assassins! Dong Mingyu's expression changed. She instantly recognized their profession. They were assassins amongst gods. The 9 underworld hunters. The nine-headed lion and the Alldevil Heavenwalker cried out in shock and joy. Without hesitation, they fled toward them. Without even glancing at these two, Long Chen swung his saber, blasting them apart. But all of a sudden, clapping sounds rang out from within the palace. A middle-aged man walked out, looking at Long Chen. "Not bad, truly not bad. You're quite an interesting 9-star heir. You seem a bit different from the others, but hopefully you can give me a pleasant surprise. Otherwise, killing you just like this would be quite regretful." This middle-aged man looked normal but gave off an extremely sinister feeling. His gaze in particular seemed to be searching for people's weaknesses at all times. It seemed that he didn't even care about Long Chen killing the Alldevil Heavenwalker and the nine-headed lion. He simply walked out of the palace. "I've been with the 9 underworld hunters for 3,000 years, and you are the 4th 9-star heir I've encountered. It seems that I'm about to profit again." The middle-aged man laughed, looking at Long Chen like he was his prey. As for Long Outyen, Jiang Wuchen, and Yi Liangchen, they were just as happy. In their eyes, Long Chen was definitely dead today. "Long Chen, although I'm not personally killing you, it's fine. I'll take care of those brothers and lovers of yours, ha." Long Outyen finally felt the pleasure of revenge for Long Chen killing his mother. "I also won't kill you personally. I'll make sure you stay alive in this world." Long Chen snorted and suddenly appeared right in front of Long Outyen. Long Outyen was startled, not expecting Long Chen to directly come toward him with the 9 underworld hunters present. Long Chen was incredibly fast and instantly froze the space around Long Outyen. The latter couldn't even move. However, just at that moment, a chain flew out at Long Chen. The head of the chain looked to be a viper's head. Bang! Long Chen raised his arm, knocking aside the chain. Its path deviated toward Yi Liangchen and Jiang Wuchen. "No!" The two of them cried out in horror, but they had no time to flee. The chain struck them, instantly blasting them into blood mist. Beside Jiang Wuchen, Feng was splattered with blood, and she was pale with horror. The chain contained the power of a divine Tao, and a terrifying kind at that. A mortal would be instantly killed on contact, and the chain only barely flew by her face. It all happened so fast that it ended before it even began. The previously mighty Long Outyen had his throat in Long Chen's hand. He was like a chicken. The 9 underworld hunter who had attacked was surprised. He had been careless, not expecting Long Chen to be so powerful. His chain trembled as he prepared to attack again, but the middle-aged man waved his hand, stopping his movements. The middle-aged man looked at Long Chen indifferently. It seemed that he didn't care about Long Outyen's life or death. "Please, save me." Long Outyen squeezed out some words. Even all these experts couldn't protect him. What no one had expected was that Long Outyen's pants became wet. He was so scared that he had pissed himself. Coward! The countless experts of the martial heaven continent looked at him scornfully. This was a sovereign? A peerless heavenly genius? He broke down as soon as he faced death. Long Chen had faced death countless times without bending or lowering his head. In comparison, Long Outyen was an embarrassment. The middle-aged man shook his head. "You were the one who interjected while I was speaking. Do you think this is your place to talk? It can only be said that you were courting your own death. Although you sent the information of the 9-star heir to me, and I did promise the Long family to give you some benefits, you've irritated me. I don't really care about you. If you like interjecting yourself, you can continue begging." This middle-aged man's status was clearly extremely high. Just interrupting him was a grave sin for Long Outyen. That was why he didn't stop Long Chen. "No," Long Outyen cried out in despair. Was there any chance he could survive when he was caught in Long Chen's hands? "I beg you. The Long family will repay you," begged Long Outyen. "Just based on you? The Long family has disciples through various worlds and countless heavenly geniuses. As for your branch, with your talent, you wouldn't even reach the middle tier. Perhaps if I saved a dog of the Long family, they might feel some gratitude. But do you think the Long family will repay me for saving an ant? Are you joking with me?" The middle-aged man shook his head. He coughed. Long Outyen tried to speak once more, only for Long Chen to crush his throat. Rainbow blood spurted out. You don't need to beg him because I won't kill you. You took my spirit root, spirit blood, and spirit bone. You've caused me endless pain. Do you think that I'll just kill you like this? I'll let you live. I'll make you live a life worse than death. A coward like you definitely doesn't have the courage to kill yourself. Long Chen took out a black pill. He then stuffed it into Long Outyen's mouth. I prepared this pill for you a long time ago. Now I can finally use it. Long Outyen stubbornly clenched his teeth, only for Long Chen to break his teeth with a finger and stuff the pill through. Long Chen tossed Long Outyen aside after feeding him the pill. He really did just let him off. Feeling delighted, Long Outyen fled into the immortal palace. However, he had barely reached the gates when he suddenly screamed. Sharp points began to sprout out of his body like bamboo. They wriggled like maggots coming out of a rotting corpse. Underworld corpse insect poison. The middle-aged man was finally a bit astonished. He recognized this poison. However, he was actually wrong. This was a special existence that Long Chen had refined through his own essence blood and the black soil. The death chi of the black soil had been mistaken by the middle-aged man to be the Netherworld's chi. However, he was right about it being insect poison. When the pill entered the stomach, it transformed into millions of maggots that devoured Long Outyen's blood and soul. Most terrifying of all, they could not be killed. If they were, Long Outyen would also die. These maggots were connected to his Yuan spirit, so Long Outyen was already clear that these maggots were materialized from his own blood and soul. Ah! Long Outyen screamed in terror. Maggots continued to wriggle out of his body, every single one causing him incomparable pain. This was a torture that could not be described with words. At this moment, one of the 9 underworld hunters slammed a palm on Long Outyen's forehead, causing him to collapse. His screams were cut off, but he continued to twitch. Some of the Divine Family's experts then hastily brought him away. After that, a chair appeared in the air. The middle-aged man sat down on it. Someone go test his power. Don't kill him too fast or it would be wasteful. Yes. The previous 9 underworld hunter who had attacked Long Chen stepped forward. His chain pierced toward Long Chen like a viper. The chain's power had shot up. It was unknown just how many times stronger this attack's power was compared to Yi Ming and the others. This overwhelming power shook the martial heaven continent's experts. The battle against gods had just ended. How had an even more terrifying group suddenly appeared? It seemed that they had come specifically for Long Chen. Long Chen's hand caught the chain, but just at that moment, countless barbs burst out of the chain. His hand was pierced through. Furthermore, his 108,000 stars shuddered, seemingly suppressed by some mysterious energy. Long Chen's aura instantly dropped a level. The 9-star soul-chasing chains are specifically made to be used against 9-star heirs. How does it feel to have your power disappear? The 9 underworld hunters sneered, seemingly already having expected this result. A dagger appeared in his other hand, and he stabbed it towards Long Chen's chest. Just as he approached Long Chen and thought that he was powerless, Long Chen's palm slammed into his head, blasting it apart. His headless corpse fell from the sky. A 9 underworld hunter was killed by a slap. Even right before his death, he didn't understand. Long Chen's body was clearly affected by his move. How did he still have the power to retaliate? Clapping rang out. The middle-aged man said, "Not bad, not bad. You were able to resist the power of the 9-star soul-chasing chain. That means that you're a big fish. Good, perhaps you can give me some more surprises." The stronger Long Chen was, the happier the middle-aged man became. That was because the mission of the 9 underworld hunters was to hunt down 9-star heirs, and the stronger the prey that they hunted, the greater their rewards. Amongst the 9 underworld hunters, this middle-aged man's status was already quite high. He had already killed 3 9-star heirs before, and had a certain understanding of them. Another 4 people stepped forward, their chains whistling towards Long Chen. However, this time, Long Chen didn't wait for them to attack. Instead, he charged towards the middle-aged man. Youngsters are too impatient. First let me see if you're qualified to even fight me. The middle-aged man shook his head, completely looking down on Long Chen. It seemed that he had no intention of fighting. However, it was simply unknown if he was intentionally antagonizing Long Chen or if he really disdained fighting him. Qualified? I'll show you my qualifications. Long Chen slashed his blade. The 4-9 underworld hunters attacking him were killed instantly. The power of his attack continued towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man simply extended a hand and a barrier appeared. Long Chen's attack was easily blocked. Good, very good. You're definitely a big fish, the biggest fish in history. The middle-aged man's smile widened. Suddenly, more and more 9 underworld hunters came out of the palace. There were hundreds of them. They immediately surrounded Long Chen. Every single one of them had a chain like vipers preparing to strike. Alright, the probing can end here. With your power, it's worth it paying a huge price to bring you to the higher plane. The 3 9-star heirs that I killed before were all too weak. The price for them was fixed. Today, my luck is truly good. I encountered someone with a variant of the 9 stars. Even your 6-star battle armor is different. I wonder if you're the destined one from the legends. If that's the case, I really struck gold. I can directly trade you for a world bead. But even if you aren't, I'll still be able to get a plentiful reward from Lord Brahma, said the middle-aged man. He waved his hand, and scenes appeared in the air. Those were scenes of experts being slain. They were all 9-star heirs. 2 had reached the 5-star battle armor, while 1 had reached the 6-star battle armor. His 6-star battle armor was the original 6-sided star. The 3 of them all died to this middle-aged man's hands. They all let out unwilling roars just before their deaths. Long Chen's fury soared. This was an absolute insult to Long Chen. But why is it that this world always has so many people who like courting death? Long Chen's voice was low. His body was quivering from rage. Black strands of aura began to float out of his body. Long Chen had never been so angry. His killing intent was exploding. He felt like he was flailing into an abyss. He tried to control his anger, but people kept provoking him, wanting to kill him. He couldn't understand why this world was like that. The hundreds of hunters joined their chains, forming a giant net around him. The power of this formation instantly fractured the martial heaven continent. The continent was unable to endure this power. At the center, Long Chen was the target of all their power. The space around him twisted and turned. It felt as if he was being crushed by millions of stars. Most terrifying of all, the 6-point star behind him was quivering as if it might shatter as well. Long Chen's bones creaked. That immense pressure contained a special power that seemed to be specialized at countering the 9-star hegemon body art. Submit. This star extermination formation is specialized for 9-star heirs. Even if you had awakened your hegemon chi, with your current realm, you wouldn't be able to endure the power from this many people, said the middle-aged man. There are so many people in this world who don't know what respect is. If I can free this world from its pain, I am willing to become a devil and raise my butcher's blade. I will kill all you inferior lifeforms. Long Chen's voice came through the cracks of his teeth. It was like a god's vow, a devil's curse. His 6-point star began to move. The layered triangles began to revolve, one going clockwise and one going counterclockwise. His divine ring also began to revolve in different directions, with 3 colors going clockwise and 3 going counterclockwise. In that instant, the stars within Long Chen's body quivered. All their power ignited and gushed forth. The formation around Long Chen began to creak. The middle-aged man's expression finally changed. He was filled with disbelief. Boom! The giant formation exploded, killing all the 9 underworld hunters linked to it. At the same time, Long Chen's power soared like a dam had been broken. His power caused the world to shake. Energy burst out of Long Chen's body. A pillar of light soared into the cosmos, shaking the stars. This was the ultimate form of his 6-star battle armor. When his 2 triangles revolved against each other, his stars ignited, unleashing all their power. This was Long Chen's new technique. Before, his battle armor was like a dam that only had a small opening for his power to pass through. Although that allowed him to fight longer, its instantaneous burst potential was limited. His new 6-star battle armor was capable of opening the floodgates in an instant to unleash all his power. The power of all his stars shattered the formation, and the resulting backlash killed the 9 underworld hunters. In front of this power, they appeared incredibly weak. The middle-aged man could no longer remain indifferent. Long Chen's saber was slashing towards him already. A chain appeared in his hand just like the others, but his chain was silver while the others had been bronze. Boom! The entire continent sank. At the edges of the continent, the land began to collapse. This world was unable to endure a clash on this level. The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back. His eyes gleamed with excitement. Haha, excellent. I've actually found the destined 9-star heir. The middle-aged man laughed as if he had found a priceless treasure. Long Chen ignored him, continuing after him. He put away Evil Moon and slammed a palm at him. Long Chen gave up Evil Moon because in that previous clash, Evil Moon became covered in cracks. Even with the protection of his astral power, Evil Moon could not bear the power of that silver chain. If he continued with Evil Moon would be destroyed. This explosive state of his could not be maintained for long. He had to kill his opponent before his power ran out. Boom! Long Chen's palm landed on the chain. It once more sprouted countless barbs, but this time his power was so overwhelming that the barbs were bent back, unable to pierce his body. With one palm knocking aside the chain, a lotus image appeared on his other palm. He unleashed it right on the middle-aged man's body. A lotus flew out, piercing through his body. The middle-aged man was greatly shocked. He had never seen this kind of terrifying magical art. Wasn't it said that the 9-star heirs only fought with brute power and didn't use magical arts? Flames burned his chest, making him unable to heal the wound. Just as he was handling the flames, lightning exploded. A lightning spear appeared in Long Chen's hand. Another world appeared behind him. It was a world filled with lightning dragons. All the lightning domain's power was now condensed into Long Chen's hand. After the world extermination flame lotus, he unleashed the wild lightning soul battle spear. This attack contained all of Lei Linger's power and all the power of the lightning domain. The middle-aged man was appalled. All the 9 underworld hunters' techniques were based on countering the 9-star heir's astral power. That was because they didn't use other techniques. However, Long Chen first injured him with flame energy and was now unleashing a lightning attack. He was filled with horror. This spear's power made him feel fear. At this critical moment, he took out a tortoise shell armor. It was white as jade and had ancient immortal characters on top of it. This was his protective immortal item. Boom! The lightning spear landed squarely on the tortoise shell, instantly blasting it apart. But the middle-aged man also escaped with his life, even though the explosion badly wounded him. His own physical body was almost broken. He had never dreamed that a 9-star heir in a lower plane that hadn't even grown up would possess such terrifying power. He was even capable of threatening his life. Seeing Long Chen charging back towards him, he hastily formed hand seals. Flames appeared around him. He was igniting his divine energy. Long Chen's power had already terrified him. He had no choice but to unleash even self-damaging techniques to increase his power. Boom! They once more clashed. The dome of the heavens vanished. Under the pull of their power, the cosmos was fully exposed to everyone. This was a heaven-shaking battle. The people in the barrier could only watch in horror. They all knew that in this battle of the Dark Era, if Long Chen won, they lived. If he lost, everything would end. The Dragonblood warriors clenched their fists, but they were too weak to participate in such a battle. The experts of the spirit world, Starfield Divine World, and the Immemorial Path also watched Long Chen. Xiao Fei clenched his teeth. Big brother Long Chen, you'll definitely win. The High Priest and Mariun exchanged a glance. They sighed inside. Their admiration towards the 5 sovereigns had reached a peak. This had clearly all been within the sovereigns' calculations. This was why the sovereigns, Yun Tian Ling Yunzi, and the others had all been fighting for time for Long Chen. Only once he became a sovereign could he save the continent. Looking back, it seemed that everything was going according to the sovereign's plan. With every exchange, the continent shuddered intensely. The edges of the world were crumbling. The eastern wasteland, the western desert, the southern sea, the northern source vanished. All that remained was the central plains. Suddenly, the middle-aged man took out another silver chain. He bound Long Chen with it, only for Long Chen to roar and shatter the chain. When the chain shattered, the middle-aged man coughed up a mouthful of blood. His aura plummeted. That second chain was clearly his trump card. It was connected to his soul. He was already at a disadvantage. He wasn't even able to temporarily bind Long Chen. Die! The middle-aged man suddenly ferociously turned and unleashed a ray of divine light towards the core of the martial heaven continent. Despicable! The Dragonblood warriors roared furiously. Unable to beat Long Chen, this man was actually attacking the weak members of the continent. If this attack landed, these people would be instantly wiped out. Boom! Long Chen's figure vanished, reappearing in front of that attack before it landed. He knocked it aside, but his expression grew ugly. "Ha, you can all die now." The middle-aged man laughed. He had found Long Chen's weakness. Multiple attacks rained down the martial heaven continent's experts and commoners. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.